NASDAQ up 0.1%. The Dow down 0.2%, and the S&P 500 is little changed. The 2-year yield 3.78%. That's little changed, and the yield on the 10-year 4.29%, and that's up 5 basis points. The Bloomberg Dollar Spot Index up about 0.2%. Also want to point out the British pound down 1% at 135.99 against the dollar. Few companies making news. That's Foxconn. It pulled hundreds of Chinese engineers and technicians from its iPhone factories in India. And that's a big blow to Apple's manufacturing push in the country. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash. Paul and Tom.
Lisa, thanks so much. We're going to pause here. We had Dan Ives in earlier with his optimism on Tesla. And we had the numbers out. I guess the numbers were better than the worser explanations. I'm really confused by that, and the stock has gone up. But on a broader, longer view, Matthew Winkler, the founder of Bloomberg News, editor-in-chief emeritus, full disclosure, the guy that said, yeah, we're only going to hire you because you have a bow tie. Matt Winkler joins us now with a wonderful essay, which is a compendium of what Tesla's accomplished over 2 decades as well. You make clear, Matt, the model isn't broken. Boy, a lot of people disagree with you.
Tom, it's always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me. Yes, that is absolutely true. And you use that word model. And interestingly enough, what is omitted in, if you like, the media take this year about Tesla is that the Model Y, which was the best-selling vehicle in the world in 2023, 2024, and poised certainly to be the best-selling EV in 2020.
Even if Sheryl Crow sold hers.
In 2008. By the way, sales are up in Norway and Spain already. Okay, so the demand problem that people constantly refer to in 2025 really isn't there for starters. But yes, if you look at what Tesla has accomplished over just the past 10 years, the top 10 automakers in the world, excluding Tesla, are still worth less than Tesla. Okay, think about that. And that's with all of the criticism that has been overwhelming this year. You know, in our column, I say our column, my colleague Shinpei and I have been following this company for quite some time now. And what prompted it was the question repeatedly, reading everybody's coverage, hearing it, listening to it, you and your colleagues everywhere. It went from bad to worse about Tesla this year. And so I asked the question to Shinpei, my colleague, why is Tesla still worth, 3 or 4 times the market capitalization of Toyota? And that's when we got this idea, well, why don't we use the Bloomberg artificial intelligence AI tool, DSX, and put that question to DSX? And we got a very detailed answer. It is what we've been saying for some time, is that this is a company that has accomplished something that no automobile company for sure has accomplished, but it's worth more than the GDP of Saudi Arabia, Tesla. It's the 9th largest public company in the world, which is astonishing for a company that was created by these 2 Berkeley engineers, Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning, in 2003. And by the way, I got an email from one of our Bloomberg users yesterday.
His name was Michael?
No, his name is John Billings, and he is a money manager, Bloomberg user in Washington, D.C. And he said to me in his email, we don't need AI to understand why Tesla's critics are losing. Yeah. Critics are either motivated by hate, and he put politics in parentheses, or a misunderstanding of time. Tesla represents the most extraordinary array of products, some of which all are destined to become core components of the future economy and life of humanity.
Paul Sweeney, jump in here.
But so, Matt, how important is Elon Musk to this story? He's presumably left Doge, refocusing on his companies, including Tesla. How important is that for the company, the stock, do you think?
So, that is a great question. And in fact, in our column, we actually asked that question to somebody indirectly who has been following the automobile industry since Tom, you and I became aware of it back in the 80s. Okay.
That was when Flint,
long,
Michigan was still making Buicks.
And he's Nicholas Colas, and he's co-founder of Data Trek Research.
I used to charge lunches on your Amex with Nick Colas.
Okay. So here's what he said about that. He said people in general and equity investors in particular want to see absolute commitment and belief in a vision of a better future. And they also want to be part of a winner's story, especially if there's an element of redemption in the narrative. That is something no algo or spreadsheet can understand, which is why hero-led companies are often so valuable.
There's a lot of there, including Henry Ford and Alfredson. Okay, we're going to rip up the script here. We got 4 minutes left with Mr. Winkler, who's got a nodding acquaintance with journalism. If Google Gemini takes information from the New York Times, from Bloomberg, etc., should they get a royalty of some form, some fee? With all your decades of experience, Matt, what is the industry going to do with artificial intelligence?
Okay, so you are talking about maybe one of the biggest stories to be reported, and our colleagues are presumably on this one in a very thoughtful way. But the essence of it to me is original work should always be protected and never allowed to be pilfered or subjugated to any other kind of theft. And that's the issue we're talking about. So when you ask me, should there be royalties?
Right.
Original work has, in some ways, an indispensable value to our society and civilization. Right. And so we need to protect it.
Look at the giants that you sponsored. I mean, every day it's like, oh, thank you, Matt, for hiring me. I want to go to the late Mark Pittman. It's one example. I remember Mark Pittman with the sleeves rolled up, going through all the securitized garbage of 2005 and 2006. Would AI have helped Mark Pittman at that moment? Or is it just sort of a gimmick to get kids forward, like Lisa Mateo's kids, to get them through school next year?
Okay, presumably AI, as we know it already, if it were available to him, of course it would have helped him, because it would have provided at a very basic level or fundamental level a reality check on what the facts are. And, to any journalist, that time is, expensive. So if you have a tool that enables you to know a lot more faster than otherwise, that's helpful.
I'll jump in here.
So, Matt, do we have an understanding how maybe journalism schools are incorporating AI into their curriculum? Because it just seems like it's game changing.
Well, you might find this amusing. Shinpei and I just recently finished teaching a course at Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley, business, financial, economic reporting. And we didn't use AI at all.
But the kids are using
We used the Bloomberg terminal, but we did not use AI. And the reason is, the answer to your question is, we want, of course, like all, I hope, academic institutions want them to be able to be free thinkers, independent thinkers, and to be challenged by all kinds of conflicting information, which is what a journalist has to contend with. And so using AI would have complicated the learning process for sure. And so we didn't use it.
I got 45 seconds. What does AI do to names make news? The fact is, you and I were weaned on talk to smart people. Matt, every once in a while we have a dumb person on, but we talk to smart people. What does AI do to the conversation of informed people?
So we're very lucky at Bloomberg News because we already have AI summaries on much of our content.
At the top,
yeah. However, what is missing is, in fact, what you just said, the names making news. You get a narrative in the AI summary.
But I don't get Ken Rowe going.
But you don't get the names leading the news right away. And that, to me, is where there's a fundamental difference. Because if you follow the Bloomberg way, you're absolutely right. Names make news. There's a protagonist. There's a subject. That's what we're drawn to always. And that's news judgment. And AI doesn't yet have the Bloomberg way. Maybe it will, but it doesn't yet have it that
This
way.
has been brilliant. We'll feature this on Single Best Idea today. Matthew Winkler, Emeritus Editor-in-Chief, founder of Bloomberg News, there on AI, and also on Tesla. Lisa, what's Tesla doing? Is it open for trading here?
It is. Their shares are up about 2.5% right now.
Yeah, this is where you say, "Oh, Matt Winkler moved the stock." That's how it rolls. Tesla up fractionally, or 300 up to 316, and now at a 308 level. We're on YouTube. Subscribe to Bloomberg Podcasts. Good morning.
Hello, my name is DrPaulCottrell, and we are live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Thank you for joining. I greatly appreciate it. We are not doing a simulcast on X Spaces today. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So please make sure you subscribe to all my channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Please subscribe to all those channels. In addition, if you'd like to help to support the work that I do, make sure that you also follow me on the social media, on X and on GETTR. Share the links, ask your social media to follow me. And if you could, purchase the products that I have on my website or donate. For the ones that are domestic or international, donating helps to provide all this content for free. I do all this for free for you guys, to give you my opinion, but not only that, to teach you how to make money in the news and also how to improve your health and wellness. All right. These are things that I do. And if you just follow my lead, you will do okay. So I've navigated you through that tariff crash of the market several weeks ago. And if you followed my advice, you would have made money. All right. Now we're going to go into growing the S&P 500 and how you're going to be able to navigate that. So with that said, please help support the work that I do. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee. Links are in the description of this video and also on my website. You can donate on the bottom part of the homepage. You can be a paid member to my Patreon channel. So please help support the work that I do. Now, some of the products that I have are ebooks, course material on immunology and pulmonology. The coursework are only $50, and you get a lot of PDFs, a lot of videos. You get a unique password, you log in as many times as you want, and you can watch those videos and download the PDFs and learn about pulmonology and immunology for only $50. So please take a look at that. In addition, I have great products, supplements that will help, if you stack them the way I tell you to slow down the aging process. These are things that I do. And you're going to get healthy quickly. I am older than Alex Jones. I am much fitter than Alex Jones. Much, much, much fitter than Alex Jones. All right. So just make sure that you just pay attention to me. And if you follow my lead, you will get healthy. You'll slow down the aging process. You're going to improve your immune system. You're going to improve your endocrine system. You're going to improve your neurological function. You're going to improve your cardiovascular health. You're going to improve your A1C levels. So please follow the protocol. And we're going to go over the protocol throughout this broadcast. But thank you for joining. I greatly appreciate it. So let's talk about one product that is very important for your health. And a lot of people don't realize good oral hygiene is super important for vascular and for valvular health. So get this toothpaste. It's a structural nano silver toothpaste. It has no fluoride in it. It'll whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, reduce inflammation at the gum line, and improve the gum health. And by doing that every day, you're improving your oral hygiene and reducing the chances of valvular issues or vascular issues. Poor oral hygiene not only is bad for your mouth and your teeth, but it's also bad for other elements of your body. So it's really important to have a good toothpaste. This toothpaste is the best toothpaste that you can buy. You can't buy anything better than this. There's nothing out there better than this. So please go to my store, get a few tubes of this toothpaste, and use it every day. It's what I use. And Foundational supplements like multivitamins and probiotics are super important to start with to build up your protocol. This probiotic, it's a powder. You mix it with soft foods, which is how I use it, or just mix it with filtered water. But take it every day, and with a good probiotic, you're going to reduce inflammation at the gut level. You're going to improve your immune system. The mucosal lining will improve within your gut to allow for better microbiome. Your concentrations of IgA, which is a type of antibody, will increase. That's going to help with your immune system. And the communication between your gut and your liver and your gut and your brain are going to improve. Your metabolism is going to be better. You're going to be able to absorb your nutrients. And in addition, your stools will be more consistent. You'll have less brain fog. You're going to be able to sleep better. And by sleeping better and having less brain fog, you're going to have better memory. You're going to think quicker. And you're going to, over time, have better neuroplasticity. You're going to have positive neuroplasticity over time because you're sleeping better, you're detoxifying your body. So having a good probiotic does multiple things for you. It's not just for your gut. Also, you'll notice that your skin improves. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the probiotics that I have. Super important as a foundational piece for your health protocol. With that said, let's go back to Bloomberg. But I want to just give an update because we are open in the New York session. So the S&P 500 is at 6,195. VIX is trading at 17.15. Euro is trading at 117. Oil is trading at $65.71 a barrel. BITO is trading at 20.76. That's an ETF that longs Bitcoin. Japanese yen is trading at 144. Natural gas is trading at 3.473. Gush is trading at 23.01. And DRIP is trading at 9.66. Now, what does all this mean? Well, with the VIX being below 20, risk is starting to go down in the equity market. The yen was trading yesterday at 143. It's now trading at 144. So the dollar is stabilized. Not so much risk in the international markets at this moment in time. If it starts creeping back to 140, I'm concerned that there's international markets stress starting to emerge. Euro is strengthening, so the dollar is starting to weaken. Now, is that bad? Well, I take the perspective that dollar weakness is going to help our exporters, but not just that. Dollar weakness in terms of a 10-year average, we're at about that 10-year average now. We've had an elevated level of the dollar for the last 4 or 5 years because of this post-COVID era, all right? Well, we're now starting to mean revert back to a 10-year average. So if it starts to continue to go down, then we need to reevaluate. But right now, we're near that level where it's the 10-year average. So I'm not too worried about it right now. But there are these two different perspectives. Should the dollar be strong or should the dollar be weak? I can argue both for and against the dollar being weak or strong. In the case of the dollar being strong, well, you're going to have a capital account that increases because by having a stronger dollar, there's going to be flow of funds internationally to come into our markets, right? A weaker dollar, though, is going to help with our exporters. So, it just depends on what side of the fence you are. If you are a manufacturer and you want to export your goods to another country, having a weaker dollar is going to help. All right. But if you want to bring in capital account, bring up your capital account and have more FDI, then a stronger dollar probably would be better. But it's also about interest rate differentials. When you look at the bond market, if you have, let's say, a 10-year bond that's at 4.5, but you have another country at 4.3, investors are going to want to go into your country because they're going to get a higher yield. So if your yields are going up because of a weakening of a dollar, you may actually drive foreign investment because of a higher yield differential. So it's a little bit more complicated than just should the dollar be strong or should it be weak? All right, you got to look at yield differentials between countries. So just keep that in mind. So S&P 500 is trading at 6,197. So what does this mean? The resistance level is at 6,250. That's the next resistance level. So watch out for that. I think that the S&P 500 is going to be at 6,800 or over 7,000 by year end. All right. That doesn't mean it's going to be a hockey stick up. We're going to have a wall of worry through the next 6 months. But some of the accelerant to drive the market up, tax bill being passed through Congress, normalizing of these tariff agreements, and getting that off the desk, with the negotiations, and potential settling of these warfares that are taking place in the Middle East. All right, there's some talk that there's going to be additional ceasefiring in Gaza between the Israelis and Hamas. So that would be also taking out event risk out of the market. So we have some of these accelerants that are taking place for the potential of having a 7,000 S&P 500. Now, if you listen to all those economists, we've played them for 10 weeks. They were saying, oh, get out of the dollar and get out of treasuries and get out of the stock market and, go to some sort of emerging market or go to the EU or go to China or whatever, right? And I said, don't do that. Just get additional capital, employ it into the S&P 500 or some broad index, and weather the storm and buy in. And everything turned out right. All these experts were wrong. And now they're in FOMO mode, afraid of missing out. And they told their clients to readjust, to rebalance. And it's like, no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. There's a higher probability of seeing a 7,000 S&P 500 by year end than seeing a 5,000 S&P 500. All right. So I'm just telling you how I'm looking at this and how I'm playing it. So the resistance level is at 6,250, support level at 6,000 at this moment in time for the S&P 500. So just keep that in mind. Continue to accumulate, continue to accumulate shares, and things will pan out for you. All right. But if things do start to sell out, I will tell you how to play it. All right. And where you don't panic and everything will be fine. All right. But if you just paid attention to me, you would have made 20% on your new deployed capital or more. All right. Depending on how you want to play it with leveraged or not leveraged and all this stuff. But the thing is that if you just pay attention, you will be okay. Don't be fearful. Don't bet against America. Don't bet against the United States ever. Write it on a piece of paper. Never bet against the United States, period. You will be fine. You use that one rule, you will be fine. You start getting fearful and you're going to screw up your portfolio. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. If you buy $150 or more, you get a free gift. Believe me, you'll like the gift. And it's a great way to help support the free work that I do. So with that, let's go back to Bloomberg.
That it imposed 5 months ago when prices were soaring and there was a bird flu outbreak. The surcharge sent a strong signal over the winter. Some others followed suit. The Agriculture Department says egg prices have come down. They fell nearly 13% in April, and a dozen eggs now cost less than $3. In a social media post, Waffle House called it egg-cellent news and said, "Thanks for understanding." Steve Kathan, CBS News.
The Princess of Wales returned to public duties today to discuss a subject many can relate to, her cancer journey. Speaking at a hospital in Essex, England, Kate Middleton explained to patients, staff, and visitors, you put on a sort of brave, stoic face through treatment, and when it's done,
Discover
it's like you
Luca
crack on and get
Fallone's
back to
denim.
normal. Yes, CBS News.
This is Bloomberg Intelligence with Paul Sweeney.
The real outperformance has been the U.S. corporate high yield. The market's telling me, here's another AI play. Just bid it, buy it. One person's chaos is another person's animal spirits.
Breaking market headlines and corporate news from across the globe.
The semiconductor business is a really cyclical business. These are two big-time blue-chip companies. Are people just too exuberant out there?
Bloomberg Intelligence with Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio, YouTube, and Bloomberg Originals.
All right, good Wednesday morning from the Bloomberg Interactive Worker Studio in New York City to our worldwide audience. We are streaming live on YouTube as well, so check us out there. Coming up, we're going to check in with Pierre Ferragu, head of global technology infrastructure at New Street Research, get his thoughts on these Tesla sales numbers. A little bit weaker than expected, but as Dan Ives told us earlier today, better than the whisper numbers, so we'll get the breakdown there. Sylvia Jablonski, CEO and CIO of Defiance ETFs, to discuss her outlook for the market. Stuart Paul, U.S. economist with Bloomberg Economics. He'll give us a preview of the jobs number. The ADP number came in weak today, but not a lot of people pay attention to the ADP number. I'll just say it right there. So we're going to wait on the jobs number tomorrow. So we've got Norma Linda sitting in today with me today for the next couple hours, but we're going to kick this whole thing off right now with John Tucker, any Bloomberg Business Flash. John.
All right, and this Bloomberg Business Flash being brought to you by IBKR. Financial advisors switch to Interactive Brokers for lowest cost, global trading and turnkey custody solutions. No ticket charges, no conflicts of your interest. Learn more at ibkr.com/RIA. Well, Paul doesn't pay attention to it, but ahead of the government job report tomorrow, ADP says employment in U.S. companies fell in June for the first time in more than 2 years. Also, speaking of jobs, Microsoft cutting 9,000 workers, the second wave of major layoff for the company. Tesla's global sales tumbling for the second quarter in a row, down 13% for the year-ago period. But that actually did manage to exceed what was the most pessimistic forecast. So Tesla, one of the most actively traded as usual, up right now 2.2%. Centene shares worst performing stock in the S&P 500, down over 33%. The health insurance company pulling its 2025 guidance. Never a good sign. And after setting records earlier this week, Amanda Gotti at PNC Bank says the recent stock surge is, in her opinion, justified.
We're starting to get to a little bit more clarity here and a little bit more focus on the hard data, which continues to come in solid, or at least better than expected. And so I think that's been the driver of this really material bounce that we've had these last couple months.
Right now, the S&P 500, 3 points higher, 6201 on the index. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down 114 points. The NASDAQ 150 points higher. That is up 0.2%. Now let's go overseas. Sterling right now down 1.2%. UK markets falling sharply, and also you go to their yields right now. The gilts, the 10-year bond, that is 15 basis points higher, shooting up to 4.6%. They're increasingly nervous over the fiscal situation in the UK. And also speculation of possible exit by Rachel Reeves, who's the chancellor of the Exchequer there. And just a couple, since we are a New York City-based radio station, just a couple of things to tell you about. You guys were covering this all morning with the Midtown Port Authority bus terminal, which was shut down. That has been reopened, but of course you have any number of delays, up to an hour, because of an earlier accident involving buses. And then we go to downtown Manhattan, where we are being told that there is a verdict in the Sean Diddy Holmes trial.
Okay.
So
there you go. Stay on top of that.
We check the markets and other stuff right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash. Hi, Nora.
Hello, John.
Nice
How
to
are
see
you?
Nora and Paul.
Yeah, Norma Linda, Paul Sweeney. We're live here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. We're streaming live on YouTube as well. As John said, we got kind of a mixed day in the market here. But let's take a look at some of the stocks on the move today. I'm Paul Sweeney alongside Norma Linda, and we're joined by managing editor for Bloomberg Markets Live blog, Christine Aquino. Christine, what are you looking at?
Well, Paul, John Tucker's covered it all, but let's dig in, shall we? Let's start with Centene, which
But you go into depth.
Exactly, John. But yeah, Centene, ticker CNC, biggest underperformer on the SP 500 at the moment. Declines accelerating now. That's down more than 36%. And, that is primarily because it pulled its 2025 guidance due really to the rising risk from the Affordable Care Act plans. That company is the top seller of ACA health plans, and legislation around what's going to happen with Medicaid very much up in the air at the moment. Really a sense that it got caught unaware of what's going on there, and so we have UBS analysts cutting its view to neutral from buy on the company again because of this adjustment. And Bloomberg Intelligence also commenting on the potential decline in its credit rating because the surprise guidance withdrawal. They're saying that raises the risk of an S&P downgrade to junk and a potential exclusion of their bonds from the Bloomberg U.S. Aggregate Index.
Yeah, shares are really extending their losses. I see it's down for its worst day ever. And when you look at the broader performance, it's really not been doing too well overall because we see shares down about 42% so far this year. So lots of news to parse through, but what else are you keeping your eyes on?
Well, looking at Tesla, again, ticker TSLA, John Tucker gave you the headlines, but let's dig into some of the potential kind of details there. Again, like Tesla rising 1.1% at the moment, and that is despite the tumble in their global sales. It really is benefiting from lowered expectations. This is what we're seeing at the moment. We have analysts reacting to the news that, yes, sales tumbled, but the fact that deliveries were in line is seen as being a win, and it's also a sign that demand growth is slowing rather than spiraling. That's according to William Blair analysts. And yeah, so it's basically just benefiting from the fact that the expectation for the decline was much, much worse than what we actually got in reality. And so it's a bit of a relief rally for Tesla here.
Well, we heard from Matt Winkler, editor emeritus of Bloomberg News, the founder of Bloomberg News. He's now a Bloomberg opinion columnist. He put out a column today. I'm not going to say defending Tesla's stock, but just putting in context of what the company's accomplished over the years in terms of stock price performance, valuation, revenue, and earnings growth, saying this thing is still a behemoth out there by a lot of objective measures. So interesting to put that into context. So check that out on the Bloomberg terminal or on Bloomberg.com/opinion. All right, what else you got for us? One more.
Looking at Microsoft, ticker MSFT. So shares not down too much, just down 0.2%. And that's after the news that they are, of course, laying off 9,000 workers. This is the second wave of major layoffs this year. Seems like a lot of that very much focused in their Xbox division. And so that division apparently began informing their employees of the job cuts on Wednesday morning. This is the fourth mass layoff at that Xbox division in the last 18 months. But, we're seeing a bit of a muted price reaction to this, just slightly lower in the share move here, primarily because, it's been well flagged. A lot of investors expecting this.
Mm-hmm. I'm not a gamer. I think we discussed this earlier in the week, but people are still on the Xbox, apparently. Apparently so.
I'll leave that to John Tucker. He's still, I'm still playing Pong. Let's be honest.
I do have an Xbox, but I don't really use it.
John Tucker could be a
surprise
in
the morning.
No, not even a chance. Not a chance.
All right, Christine, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Christine Aquino giving us the latest on the stock movers. And that's a podcast. You can check that out anywhere you get your podcast to see the big movers, winners and losers in the stock market. Check out Stock Movers, the podcast. All right, we've been talking a lot about Tesla this morning. Their delivery numbers came in weaker than expected. We had Dan Ives from Wedbush Securities on earlier, and he was just saying, hey, relative to maybe the Whisper number, they came in a little bit better than expected here. But let's get the broad overview of what's happening at our good friends at Tesla. The stock's up about 2.8% today, but it's down about 24% year to date. We turn to Pierre Ferragu, head of global technology infrastructure at New Street Research. Pierre, thanks so much for joining us here. How do you think about these Tesla numbers? What does it mean for the near and intermediate term story at Tesla?
Yes, as you say, there is a bit of a positive surprise, like people tracking very precisely deliveries in various markets were expecting slightly lower numbers. The surprise comes from the US. The US is a place where it's the most difficult to track the number of Tesla being delivered, and the US beat expectations. So that's a Model Y coming in, doing actually quite well. That's good. But then at the end of the day, you have to remember the big picture. We are down 13% year on year. So we are facing a situation where Tesla is struggling to sell cars. Gross margin is in the low teens. To me, Tesla facing good demand should be able to defend like mid 20s gross margin. So we are facing like a core business, an auto business that is really at a very low point that is struggling. And so what's the difficulty? You have like one structural difficulty that we understand relatively well. It's that with their current product, Tesla has kind of saturated its opportunity. Tesla needs lower price points to keep growing. And that's in the plan, they're working on it. And then you have a number of other issues. Electric cars are less fashionable than they were a couple of years ago. The Tesla brand has suffered, particularly in Europe, where numbers are down like almost 40% year on year. And so it's difficult to quantify, but it is a significant headwind as well. And overall, the economy is not the best you can imagine for auto demand.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at the Mag 7 stocks, we see Tesla as the primary laggard this year, down about 23%. And of course, we know that investors have really been vying for Musk's attention as he's been really politically involved. So as we're seeing these numbers come through, what do things look like moving forward? Are these numbers a massive impact, or are the Tesla loyalists still out there? And is there some further positivity to come?
So, yes, the Tesla stock has been on a roller coaster. It's like a very low performer this year, but it was like a clear outperformer last year. And as you say, it's following the political career, if I may say, of the CEO Elon Musk. This has created this situation. Now, if you look at the stock, since April 1st. What you see is that what tends to really move the stock is actually the news flow around how the company is.
The jury for the Diddy trial is going to be read very shortly here. I'll go to that verdict once it is published.
Of the stock going forward.
Right.
Of course, there is a lot of uncertainty on, how fast Tesla is going to be able to deploy.
Other breaking news, Trump family's crypto bets have already made $620 million and reshaped the president's $6.4 billion fortune.
Stock going forward.
Pierre, thank you so much for joining us. Always appreciate getting your thoughts there. Pierre Ferragu, he's head of global technology infrastructure at New Street Research. The jury has reached a verdict on all counts in the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking trial. Our own June Grasso will join us later to break that down. So we'll have that coming up for you. S&P 500, that's up 5 points. The Dow's down 125 points. The Nasdaq's up.
All right. The S&P 500 is at 6,203. VIX is at 16.96. Oil, let's talk about oil for a second here. Oil's at 65.56. Now, when the 12-day war was happening with Israel and Iran, oil shot up. And right before Israel was striking Iran, I was shorting oil because I was in a trading range between 61 and about 64 handle, and going in shorting at 64 and then, longing at 61 handle. But when that war started, oil skyrocketed. So what I did was I kept on shorting oil, and I kept on shorting it. I went all the way up to $78 a barrel for WTI. And I just kept on shorting oil, just kept on, accumulating a lot of positions. All right. And right when the United States hit the nuclear facilities, the oil price started dropping, and I made a pretty decent profit. All right. A very nice profit, actually. But the thing is that the fair value, the question is, what's fair value for WTI right now? Is it around 63 to 65 trading range, or is it 65 to about 68 trading range? So I'm not in an oil position. I am longing natural gas at the moment, but I'm not in crude oil position yet. And I'm debating on, should I short oil or should I long it? All right. I want to see a breakout either below 65 or have a price conviction above 65. So with that, right now it's trading at 65.55. Now, 65 is a resistance level. All right. So technically it's a little bit above the resistance level. So if it continues to creep up, and it went up to 66.43 in the pre-market or, overnight session. So if you take that information, you can make the case that 65 is the support level, but I'm not so sure. All right. I'm just not so sure yet. I want to see a more conviction in the price move in oil before I decide what I'm going to do. I'll tell you what I do, but I want to see, I'm waiting for either some sort of gap up or gap down from 65. So that 65 could be a support level or maybe starting to break and become a resistance level. Let's assume that it's a support level. Then the next resistance level is going to be 68.50. And then we're going to have this trading range between 65 and 68.50. If it breaks, 65 becomes the resistance level. And we're going to have a trading range between about 63 to 65. All right. So just I don't know if right now I'm waiting it out. I want to see more price conviction. Now, it does seem that from a fundamental perspective, with OPEC bringing on more barrels of oil and assuming those are real barrels and not fake barrels, right? Because they may have been playing around with the inventory numbers. If OPEC Plus are really increasing the supply, then it probably will go below 65. But the problem is that Petrol Logistics counts the flow of barrels of oil through shipping. And they are saying that OPEC Plus has always understated their production. And that them stating that they're increasing production is actually just backfilling their underreported numbers. So that means that nothing new is coming onto the market. In addition to, will Iran's oil be sold in the open market or not? So there's some event risk going on here with Iran, but also what's really going on with the accounting with OPEC Plus. Now, if you take a look at Cushing terminal in the United States, the data seems to suggest inventories are lower than normal. All right, inventories are lower than a 5-year average. Well, that would mean that oil should be going up. So I would say that I'm probably 60% probability that 65 is the support level and it's going to go up. And 40% chance that 65 is a resistance level and it's going to go down. Right. But I want to wait it out here I want to see where really the price action is. But I suspect that it's actually going to be going up 65. And you just, find that trading range, find that and then play with it. But then you also have Trump. There's an event risk. Oh, the P. Diddy thing just came out. Let me just play that. I'll be short here. Trump could be an event risk and talk the market down, and oil starts to go down. So let's listen in on the the Diddy trial.
Pointed. The RICO count obviously would have been putting away Sean Diddy Combs for the rest of his life. Very important count. And then the other two that he was found not guilty on, sex trafficking of Jane, sex trafficking of Cassie, those probably would have carried bigger sentences as well for prison. This guilty on transporting people for prostitution, 2 counts. I think the maximum is 10 years.
Yeah.
Now, according to the New York Times, when Diddy heard that, he turned around to his family, gave them like a sign that he was praying, and then pumped his fist.
Well, obviously, one would assume that he's relieved that he's found not guilty on the sentence or charges that would give him a longer sentence. If this holds up, he's still going to prison for a while. You can say the maximum sentence is 10 years. He's already served about 1 because they arrested him in September of last year. So it'll be interesting to see, do they run them concurrently, which means at the same time, or do they make them consecutive because they can do that with 2 charges and you can give them, 8, 10 years. Now you're talking 16 to 20 if you put them together. So that's going to be something to look forward to, or to look to in the future. But the big news is that the more serious charges, particularly the RICO charge, which would have put him away for life, he was found not guilty of.
They must have been close to a decision last night because they told the judge they were hung up on that. The judge said, I want you to continue deliberating, but take the night off, go home, come back. It seemed like 1, 2, 3, they came back and they said to the judge they had a decision on that.
It was less than an hour of deliberation today after 12 hours of deliberation previously. And I think Arthur made a very good point there in that, yeah, people will say, okay, they were deadlocked. This is kind of maybe what goes on with jurors, is they get in a room and after all, they're like, man, it's the end of the day. I can't change your mind about this. So this is not going to happen. They write the judge a note and he goes, everybody go home, take a deep breath, sleep on it. And the next day, the other juror, if there was 1 or 2, you sleep on it, you come back, and maybe you think it a little bit differently. And obviously, whoever or however many that were the holdup, they were holding it up from becoming a not guilty because obviously the majority was on that side, and that's the way it swung this morning.
So interestingly, we had Peter Frankel on, former prosecutor, current defense attorney, in fact, represented one of the personal assistants to Diddy in the trial. He was on our show earlier today, and he said the federal prosecutor in this case has like a 98%
well, the Southern District of New York has 95% conviction rate.
And so this is obviously a mixed bag, and they have to be disappointed. They didn't get the RICO count. They didn't get the sex trafficking count. They got basically transporting, sex traffickers.
But not to minimize it, they're still serious charges.
Right.
They're the lesser of the charges, but they're still, if you're facing potentially 10 years in prison, then...
All right, so the Diddy trial, not guilty on 3 counts, guilty on 2 counts. All right, for the ones that care. All right, let's go back to Bloomberg. But before we do that, maybe we'll take a look at some of the videos that I've been posting. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the cleanse, Max 14 or Max 35. It's the first part of my core protocol to boost up the immune system. Take a teaspoon a day, every day, swish in your mouth, gargle about 20, 30 seconds, and then swallow it. And what that will do is improve your oral cavity, improve your oral pharynx, help the health of the epithelial lining, and improve your mucosal lining. And that will help to boost up the immune system. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get Cleanse. Cleanse is a very high quality product. It is 30 parts per million. Another great product that I have, and it's super important to take, and it's the 4th pillar of my core protocol. And it'll help to boost up your energy levels and rev up your metabolism. You are going to lose weight safely. You take Boomer Boost for breakfast or for lunch. It's a powder. It's a very comprehensive supplement profile that's shown on the screen here. Read the label on my website. It has 68 nutrients. And what it does is it's going to target multiple systems. You're going to be able to lose weight safely if you want to lose weight. You use it as your breakfast or your lunch. Mix it with soft foods, filtered water, a smoothie, or even milk. Take it every day. Now, what it'll do is it's going to target your cardiovascular system. It's going to target your brain function. It's going to help with musculature. It's going to rev up your metabolism and increase your energy levels. You're going to have lots of energy, steady burn of energy. It's not a spike of energy like, some of these energy drinks. It's not like that. It's a steady burn of energy, and you're going to be able to safely lose weight if you want to lose weight. You're going to see the effects of this within 72 hours or less. You are going to be able to sleep better. Brain fog will go away. You're going to be able to concentrate better. And by sleeping better, you're going to be well rested. You're consolidating memory, and you're detoxifying your body. You're detoxifying your central nervous system when you have proper REM cycle and deep sleep cycles. In addition, Boomer Boost is a great way to control your A1C levels. Why? Because it helps with helping control your blood glucose levels. Now, if you stack it with the barley, like the heirloom barley or the gladiator barley, if you stack it with the Boomer Boost, it'll give you other benefits that we'll talk about. But it is very important to take the Boomer Boost every day. All right. And it's the fourth part of the core protocol. So the first part of the protocol is the Max 14, Max 35 or cleanse to boost up that immune system. And the Boomer Boost is the fourth pillar of the protocol that helps to rev up the energy levels and boost up your metabolism. Take it every day. Super important. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. And if you spend $150 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last.
Thinking about it from a domestic violence standpoint, and I know that the defense was echoing that we're looking at something different here. When we see how all this played out, were these charges and ultimately what the jury decided in terms of the verdict, was it expected?
Were the charges expected?
Was the verdict expected?
No, I don't think the verdict was expected. I think that the racketeering conspiracy was, the top charge was very difficult for the prosecution to make out here, because not only did they have to find the jury underlying acts, but they also had to find that there was an enterprise. And during closing arguments, I believe the defense put up a picture of Combs and his whole entire entourage and his family and said, does this look like an enterprise? So that was a difficult count, but I assume, the prosecution, certainly I think they expected guilty verdicts on the racketeering, on the sex trafficking charges. So no, this wasn't expected in any sense.
What's the appeals process like? How long could that take?
Oh, that could take years, I think. And I have to check with the New York courts if they're slower than other courts.
Is it unusual that he didn't get bail?
Yeah, I found it very unusual that he didn't get bail, because he could have put up a bail package that included,
It was a flight risk. That's why he didn't get bail. If I remember right, didn't he go to a different country in the Bahamas or something when they were looking for him?
When they have that much wealth,
he was a flight risk.
There's some way that they're going to find a way to get out of the country when they're facing life in prison. So that's why, but it also, when they do that, when they lock them up, it hampers their ability to prepare their defense with their lawyers, because lawyers have to then make appointments to see them. They can only see them in certain circumstances. So it really does hurt the defense's preparation to have to, go out to Brooklyn and make appointments to see them. So I don't think he's going to be getting bail at all, but we'll see.
So what happens next? What are you looking toward in terms of moving forward?
Well, there'll be a sentencing. I don't know if the judge has set a date for the sentencing, and then there'll be appeals.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, thanks, June. Appreciate that. Getting the breakdown there on the Sean Diddy Combs verdicts being read out. Let's get back to the markets where we belong. S&P 500 up 12 points. The Dow down 55 points. Then NASDAQ up 131 points. And Nora, we had Dan Ives on from Wedbush Securities on earlier, dressed egregiously bad, I might add, with his various sport coats and pants and things.
He always has something fun.
He always does. He says it's all about the robo-taxi and AI. So that's, I guess, what the bulls are hanging their hat on, because
right,
the auto business is a tough business.
Most definitely. And
all right, let's take a look at, let's see if what's popping up on some of the other channels here. I want to play this. Microsoft is cutting 9,000 jobs in second wave of layoffs.
Slashes your travel costs. With Navan, employees.
We got some breaking news just before you stepped onto set. This coming from Microsoft that basically they're going to cut 9,000 workers in a second wave of major layoffs. It seems like Microsoft is really looking to reduce headcount here.
And look, I think coding assistant as a tool is now pretty well established. It's the fastest growing software category this year. And every software maker has launched, even Google just launched their own coding assistant. So what they're saying is, we are not only launching the product, we are actually changing the workflows within our organization. And companies like Microsoft and Google, I mean, they have the highest R&D in spend. So a lot of those coders, I think, are going through this restructuring right now in terms of how their jobs are changing.
All right, well, the stock, I mean, it's down in today's pre-market, but it's still up 150% over the last 5 years, up 16% this year. Obviously, they're leading by example here.
Yeah, really outperforming year to date. I do think it's interesting to compare and contrast Microsoft, which clearly wants to cut workers, wants to reduce its headcount, to Meta, for example, which is hiring quite aggressively right now.
And spending almost $3 billion in those 10 acqui-hires. I mean, we're talking about pretty much a sizable acquisition here in terms of bringing those 10 marquee researchers on board. And look, that's how I think every big player is going to think about, how can I get the smartest people in AI to come and join the team, and probably offset that with some of the legacy kind of products they had and the spend that they were making on those products.
Okay, let's take a look at another video here. All right, let's see. Let's listen to CNN here for a sec.
Create assets that fit in with your entire campaign while staying on brand with Adobe Express.
This morning, Zohran Mamdani is officially the Democratic nominee for New York City mayor, and he's now facing new attacks from President Trump. The president is now threatening to arrest Mamdani if he blocks immigration arrests in New York City, something that Mamdani has promised to do. But there is a lot more and a lot more questions about, as he is now continuing to campaign, that Mamdani is also facing continued and serious questions about his stance on Israel. CNN's Harry Anton is joining me now and is running the numbers on this, taking this and looking also more broadly, because it speaks to the broader views in Democratic politics specifically, also speak to what's going on with Mamdani and this race for mayor in New York City.
Yeah, absolutely true. I mean, look, Andrew Cuomo during the primary attacked Mamdani as being insufficiently pro-Israel. I'm not quite sure the former governor understood how much the politics have changed around this issue among Democrats. What are we talking about here? All right, who Democrats sympathize more with, Israelis or Palestinians? In 2017, the Democratic Party was a pro-Israeli party. Look at this. They sympathized with the Israelis by 13 points, more with the Israelis than the Palestinians. But look at the sea change. Now Democrats sympathize more with the Palestinians by 43 points. Oh my God, that is a change in the margin of 56 points over the course of just 8 years. So all of a sudden, it's the pro-Palestinian position that actually reigns supreme in Democratic politics, not the Israeli position. And that is part of the reason why Mamdani was able to do so well in this primary, because those attacks over Israel, simply put, did not ring true for Democrats. They're now on the side of the Palestinians, not the Israelis.
I mean, this is a much bigger issue, specifically with Mamdani, though. I mean, an outspoken critic of Israel. He's facing continued criticism, though, for not being outspoken enough against anti-Semitism, that is for sure. But on this, what is it? Talk about Democrats and how broadly how this really is shifting.
Yeah, so you see this among Democrats overall, right? But we know that Mamdani's base was younger voters within the Democratic Party, and so I want to break it down
with younger Democrats.
Correct. So take a look here. Who age 18 to 49 Democrats sympathize more with, the Israelis or the Palestinians? Again, in 2017, younger Democrats sympathize more with the Israelis by 14 points. Look at this shift now. Palestinians, they sympathize more with the Palestinians by 57 points. That is an over 70-point shift in the margin in just a matter of 8 years. So the bottom line is Mamdani's base within the Democratic Party and the base of the Democratic Party of younger voters, younger Democrats, have changed tremendously on this issue in 8 years' time. I rarely ever see shifts like this, Kate, in which you see one side of the equation leading by 14 points 8 years ago, and then all of a sudden the other side of the equation leading by 57 points. The bottom line is the politics around the Israelis and the Palestinians have shifted tremendously among Democrats, and they've shifted specifically tremendously among Democrats who are under the age of 50, younger Democrats who are Mamdani's base, and also the base of Democratic socialists like himself, like Bernie Sanders, like AOC. They have just shifted more so than I think that anyone could possibly have imagined, say, 8 years ago.
Harry, thank you so much, taking a real closer look at Democratic politics and how you're seeing that shift transition. It's good to see you. Thank
Nice
you.
to see you.
John.
Right with us now, Axios senior contributor Margaret Talev and Spectrum News political anchor and host of the Big Deal podcast, Errol Lewis. I want to take a tangent to that discussion right there. I still want to talk about Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic nominee to be mayor of New York City, but I want to focus on a little bit of an exchange he has had with President Trump, because President Trump yesterday was asked what would happen if Mamdani stood in the way of ICE arresting undocumented immigrants or apprehending undocumented immigrants in New York City. I want you to hear what the president said and threatened, and then I want you to hear the response from the Democratic nominee for mayor.
Hello, my name is Adam Ferrari, the Chief Executive Officer of Phoenix Energy. I look forward to you joining us at our next investor webinar, where you can drill deeper into our 9 to 13% annual interest rate bond offerings and see how our company has become an emerging leader in the oil and gas industry. In 2024, Phoenix Energy rose to become the 11th most prolific oil and gas operator in the Williston Basin, one of America's top producing regions. We are now right alongside industry giants like ConocoPhillips and EOG and plan to continue rising in the rankings.
We'll have to arrest him. A lot of people are saying he's here illegally. We're going to look at everything.
What we're seeing in President Trump's rhetoric is an attempt to focus on who I am, where I'm from, what I look like, how I sound, as opposed to what I'm actually fighting for. Because to do so would be to display the stark contrast in our sincerity in actually delivering for the very working people who've been left behind by our politics.
It just so happens that that interview that you saw with Zohran Mamdani was conducted by Errol Lewis, part of an extensive discussion last night. So Errol, what do you make of the back and forth here and how each of those two gentlemen are positioning themselves?
Well, John, good morning. As is often the case, what we have is a Republican who wants to beat up on a Democrat and sort of demonize him and use it to rally the Republican base and raise money and do all kinds of things. And frankly, Zohran Mamdani can kind of do the same thing in the opposite direction. Donald Trump is very unpopular in New York City. He lost New York City twice when he ran for president, even though this is his hometown. And Zohran Mamdani is aware of that. And it never hurts a Democrat to bash Donald Trump. And so I think we're going to see a lot of that going back and forth as each tries to exploit the political vulnerabilities of their adversary.
Margaret, it sounds like what Errol's saying is you have a president who wants to bash a Democratic candidate and a Democratic candidate who wants to be bashed by the president, in a way.
Yeah, and to Errol's point, they do both get something political out of it. There's another trend developing, too, where we're seeing the president talk more and more about this idea of forcing denaturalization, trying to really test the limits of what he can do as the executive in terms of the immigration status or the citizen status of people who were born in other countries, became U.S. citizens, did the things that, are so often talked about as playing by the rules. You wait your turn, you study what it means to be an American, you take the citizenship test, you do all the right things, you become a citizen. And increasingly now, he and the Justice Department are talking about increasing denaturalization for naturalized citizens who in some ways are seen to have sort of betrayed U.S. ideals. And right now, this is to some extent rhetoric, but we have actually seen a huge uptick since the beginning of the first Trump administration, since 2017, in the number of cases being discussed for denaturalization. You saw him sort of float this as a threat against Elon Musk, who of course is originally.
I think the denaturalization aspect to Trump's rhetoric is a little uncalled for, honestly. All right, with that, let's continue. I want to bring up BITO. BITO is an ETF that tracks Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin is trading at about 108, so 108,000 or so. Now, there's two ways to play it. Well, there's lots of different ways to play it, but the way I look at it is BITO is the long ETF and BITI is the short ETF for Bitcoin. All right. Now, BITO is trading at 20.77 and BITI, which is shorting Bitcoin, is trading at 1961. Now, if you take a look at BITO, the long ETF, its support level is going to be at 20. And if 20 breaks, then this next support level will be 1973. Resistance level right now is 2148. And about a week ago to 2 weeks ago, it's been bouncing around, going below, and then coming back up, and then dropping back down below that 2148 mark. So 2148 is very important resistance level. Now, you got to be careful with these ETFs because you do have leverage decay. So, and there's a little bit of tracking error with it, with Bitcoin. But I think this is a great way to play it. So right now, I do have a position longing. And what I'm noticing with Bitcoin in some of the commentary, some of it, the reasons why it's not going above 110 right now is that you have buyers coming in, but you also have sellers of Bitcoin. And it's about equal. That's one fundamental analysis point of view. Another fundamental analysis point of view is that there's still a little bit of concern about what's going on in terms of the global economy with the tariffs and concern about war in the Middle East. Now, if both of those things start to abate, then you should see Bitcoin start to creep back up. All right. There's lots of money flowing into these ETFs. All right. There's lots of different ETFs. There's lots of money flowing with these ETFs. So I would think that within the third and fourth quarter of this year, we should see an elevated price of Bitcoin above the 110 mark. Now, some people have been saying 136 might be a target number by the year end, maybe even 150. I don't know. But at least in the short term, BITO is having a hard time staying above 2148. And that coincides with the problem that Bitcoin has with going above 110. So please, be careful when you are doing Bitcoin because it is volatile. But right now, today, it's BITO has been going up since the market opened. And right now it's trading at 20.81. So just keep in mind, 2148 resistance level, 20 is the near term support level.
So what degree?
Yeah, the average taxpayer.
What does it mean for us?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you get to so that's a good question actually. You get to keep your tax cuts from 2018. If this thing had expired, it would be a pretty large tax hike for individuals. Now, unfortunately, for people in very expensive state tax states,
what is the salt? Where are we on salt?
Well, so what the Senate wants to do is allow a $40,000 state and local tax deduction for people making $500,000 or less. These are married couples, $20,000 a person, but it goes away after 2029. The House wanted to make that permanent.
All right, very good. Andrew Silverman, government analyst covering the tax policy for Bloomberg Intelligence, joining us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio here. So we appreciate that. We're getting that. And we'll probably, I don't know, John Tucker, are we going to get a ruling? Are we going to get something from the House today, or is that pushed into tomorrow maybe, do you think?
I would be surprised if it happens today, right?
Yeah. I mean, the rules...
It'll be after the 4th of July because they were called back and, vacation week, it'll be next week.
Okay. And weather. A lot of people couldn't make it to the Hill.
Fair. It was hot.
I'll be here tomorrow. I'll be here tomorrow, so no need to worry for something. We will have it for you. S&P 500 up 13 points. The Dow down 49. The NASDAQ up 150 points. We're going to have more coming up. This is Bloomberg. Good morning.
Here on GB News. Now returning now to that huge breaking news story, and that is that the jury has reached verdicts in the P. Diddy, the Sean Combs trial in New York. And joining us now is the American lawyer, Alan Dershowitz. Alan, welcome to the show. So the verdicts have been reached, some guilty, some not guilty. What happens next? What does this mean for the shattered reputation of Sean Combs?
Well, I think he'll be freed. I think it'll be reversed on appeal. The jury acquitted him of the real criminal conduct and convicted him of what's called Mann Act violations, that is just traveling across state lines for immoral purposes. That's an anachronistic statute, and I think the court will reverse it. I also think probably he has a good chance of being released on appeal. So this is a great victory, not only for Sean Combs, but I think for the law and for the Constitution, because essentially they overcharged him for sexual, consensual conduct. What he did, you can argue, violated moral standards, but it's very, very hard to conclude based on the evidence that he committed the kinds of crimes that he was charged with. The government overcharged it, the jury saw through it, and they came to a verdict that will probably be reversed on appeal.
Okay, Alan, so I believe you were also a member of Harvey Weinstein's defense team in 2018, right? And also Donald Trump's defense team in the first impeachment trial in 2020. So you really, really know your stuff. It will come as a surprise to people in Britain that Sean Combs could be freed after all of this. Talk us through that.
Well, he's been acquitted of the major and most serious charges that involve conspiracies and was convicted of something that people are not charged with generally. And so I think a court of appeals will say he's not really a flight risk. He's not going to run away anywhere. He's the most recognizable face of anybody charged with any crime. And so the question is where he stays pending appeal. And if he has a good chance of winning on appeal, which I think he does, the presumption of innocence should continue and he should be allowed to remain out. Remember, you don't get back time you've termed in prison. Even if he gets the conviction reversed and he has spent a year in prison, he's not going to get that back. So I think a court will err on the side of freedom rather than confinement. So I suspect this is a good day for Sean Diddy Combs and a good day for the law, and a bad day for feminists who believe that there's no such thing as consensual sexual conduct of this kind. We're not sitting in judgment over people's sexual predilections. Obviously, Sean's are different from most Americans, but I don't think it arises to the level of criminal conduct under the jury's verdict.
And I believe you're also an advisor to the defense team of O.J. Simpson. Just to underline your pedigree, you know what celebrity law, how it works in the US. And I think Brits just find it just terminally fascinating, the mechanics of this. I understand there's $1 million bail fee has been set for Sean Combs. Do we know much about his financial situation? Would it be easily able to meet that bail? And do you think, as his legal team, as I understand it, they want him to be freed before any sentence? And do you think that's also looking likely?
I think that's going to be very likely. He can raise it by simply writing a check for $1 million or $10 million, and he'll do it. And as the judge said today, I gather you don't want to go back to the detention center in Brooklyn, which is really a hellhole. I've been there many times, as you say. I've defended many people, Klaus von Bülow, I defended, who many people in England know about. And I've done many of these high-profile cases, and I've never had a situation where somebody has escaped or run away. And so I think he'll be allowed free pending appeal. And my prediction, it's not a certainty, but it's a prediction, is that the conviction will be reversed on appeal and he'll be a free man.
And Alan Dershowitz, there was a huge amount of speculation about other people. We've got people are emerging now from the court there in New York. Let's see if they give statements to the media. There's a huge amount of speculation as to other people who were at these parties, of course, without going into any detail. Do you think that other people present might now be fearful, perhaps, of being investigated? Might this carry on?
No, I don't think so. I think the prosecution has learned its lesson that juries can see through overcharging, and I think this will end the matter. There'll be an appeal, obviously, and nobody can ever predict with certainty the outcome of an appeal. But I've done 250 appeals in the United States, and based on my experience, this is a good case, a good chance that it'll be reversed on appeal and he'll be freed.
And Alan Dershowitz here, we're seeing the beginnings of people emerging from that courts building in New York. It seems like they're supporters of P. Diddy emerging at the moment. Typically what happens next, Alan Dershowitz? You'd expect, what, the jubilant lawyer, one of Diddy's team, to come out and address the media?
Well, he won't be jubilant because there still are 2 convictions, but he'll be happy, and he'll talk about how the law worked. Look, his defense essentially was that these women consented. These were transactional sexual encounters. People were willing to do it because they wanted to benefit from Sean Combs's business, and that's simply not a crime. You may not like it, and it'll probably hurt his career, but it will, I think, send a powerful message to the prosecutors not to bring criminal charges for what is not rape, what is not unconsented to conduct, and or at least where there's reasonable doubt about it. So I think this is a good day for justice.
And Alan Dershowitz, you said there that this would be a bad day for feminists, for campaigners, but they're bound to say, of course, that this will be yet another example where justice can be bought by wealthy men, or at least justice can be evaded with wealthy men, with powerful lawyers. Is there any credence in that?
No, I don't think so. This is not a bad day for real feminists who believe in equality. This is a bad day for feminists who weaponize the criminal justice system against sexual conduct of which they disapprove, but which is consensual. So it's a good day for real feminism, a bad day for extremists.
I think Diddy should have been convicted, but of course Alan Dershowitz can, spin it in a way where he's not guilty. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the magnesium and zinc. Magnesium and zinc is dual purpose. It's going to help with your brain function, but also your immune system. Super important to take every day. Drink it with filtered water. In addition, magnesium helps with your brain function. Now, and Magnesium helps with the efficacy of D3. Vitamin C and magnesium, super important. Also, dual purpose, helps with your skin, helps with your immune system, helps with your brain function. The magnesium is the ingredient for the brain function, and magnesium helps with the efficacy of D3. You can stack these together to get the max benefit. So take the magnesium and zinc, and the vitamin C and magnesium. It's a great way to boost up that immune system and help that brain function. And again, vitamin C helps with the skin. Very important. Now, another great product that I have that's dual purpose is the collagen. The collagen helps with skin, hair, and nails, cartilage, joint health, musculature, bone density. Very important to take every day. You get a big scooper. This is a month's supply. Mix it with soft foods, filtered water, a smoothie, or even just with milk. But take it every day and do resistance training, and you're going to build muscle. You're going to be able to help with that bone density. You're improving the joint health, and collagen helps with skin. And what's amazing about collagen is that it cross-links with vitamin C. Drink about 64 ounces of water, or about 32 to 64 ounces of water throughout the day. Take the vitamin C, and the vitamin C will cross-link using the water with the collagen and improve your dermal layer. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen and get the vitamin C. Take it every day, and you're going to have multiple systems in your body improving. Musculature, bone density, skin. Very important. So please go to my store, use discount 5, get $5 off any order. And if you spend $150 or more, you get a gift until supplies last.
Revenue growth, cash flow growth, multiple. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to like at Tesla, so he'll come in and share his thoughts there. Rob Barnett, Senior Energy and Commodities Analyst on the Senate bill. Solar demand and just green energy in general. I don't think that's going to be very good discussion. Jeffrey Palma, Senior Vice President and Head of Multi-Asset Solutions at Cohen & Steers. He's going to join us on markets. And Jamie Norris, Bloomberg News UK business editor on Wimbledon, turns 75% profit trading access to VIP suites. That sounds interesting to me. So we got a lot coming up in the next hour. Right now, let's kick it all off with John Tucker and a Bloomberg business.
Has invested the jobs report tomorrow. President Trump saying he reached a trade deal with Vietnam. Among the stocks impacted, Nike. They make a lot of their stuff there. It was up 1.7%. Microsoft cutting about 9,000 jobs, the second major wave of layoffs for the company this year. Economist David at Rosenberg Research says he's got a pretty dim outlook for U.S. growth.
I think that what's happening here that isn't priced into any asset class right now, none, is that the recession that most of us missed in 2022 and 2023 is actually already here. I see the evidence that it's already coming.
S&P 500 right now up 14 points, 62.12 on the index. The Dow 32 points lower. The Nasdaq 100 right now up 137 points. And we check the markets for you all day long right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that's your Bloomberg Business Flash. Nora and Paul.
All right, John Tucker, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Mixed on the screen. Let's get a sense of what some individual stocks are doing right now. We'll do that with Christina Kino. She is from Bloomberg News. She covers all the markets for us. She knows what's going on. Christine, what do you have for us?
Well, let's take a closer look at those Nike shares, Paul, because, yeah, as John Tucker said, a lot of volatility there. And so Nike, ticker NKE, currently up 1.4%. But we did get a lot of whipsaw there once we got some more details of President Trump's trade deal with Vietnam. And so the deal on the table is as such, right? He's going to be charging, or the U.S. is going to be charging 20% for Vietnam, or Vietnam's going to be paying 20% to the U.S. for any imports, and then also 40% tariff on trans-shipping. So that's when, goods come from one location, transferred to an intermediate destination before it reaches its final destination. So, yeah, Nike shares not liking some of those details.
Let's be clear on the language. This is per Michael McKee, Bloomberg economics reporter. It's important to note that Vietnam is not going to pay us anything. American companies and consumers will pay the tax. That's how tariffs work.
There you go. So yeah, the investors again trying to parse all those details and still trying to figure out what that all means. And so a lot of volatility in those shares today.
And it's interesting. I'm still stuck on yesterday's news about the Snowfers. Do we remember this, or has too much happened in the past 24 hours? This hybrid sneaker loafers. Are any of you guys
$500?
$500? I missed that part.
Yes.
Would you be a buyer of those? Paul?
No. No. Matt, wink the mic. What else you got for us?
Looking at Amcor today as well, ticker AMCR. Those shares up more than 1%. They got a buy recommendation from Jefferies. This is a new recommendation. And the broker is seeing a compelling risk-reward ratio and good earnings momentum. So Amcor, it's a packaging solutions group. It recently combined with Berry Global. And so, analysts really liking that deal there. And so Jefferies analysts placing their price target at $12. Shares currently $9.58 last I looked. So yeah, good rating for Amcor there.
So we've been some of these healthcare companies. We were talking about Centene earlier, but you're looking at, is it Molina Healthcare?
Molina, yes, that's exactly right, Nora. So that's actually the second biggest decliner on the S&P 500. Again, this is all trading off of what we're seeing with Centene. But yeah, Molina Health, ticker MOH, also seeing declines of nearly 20% at the moment. So one of the biggest kind of losers in that news flow. And, that momentum for those shares haven't been good in the past 5 days. They've been down 11%. They've fallen 12% in the past 30 trading days. Trading volume also above average in terms of the 20-day time frame. So that's 16% above average over the last 20 days. They're also trading 11 times their estimated earnings per share for the coming year, which is probably why it's probably why investors.
All right, I'm going to interject here. So the natural gas is going up throughout the trading session. It's trading at 3.497 right now for the futures market. And you can take a look at how to play that by looking at boil or cold, spelled with a K. Now, if it's going up, you want to purchase the ETF boil. If it's going down, then you want to purchase cold. Now, the boil is trading at 47.29 right now. Intraday high is 47.8. I'm longing natural gas right now. And the resistant level that you want to take a look at is about 51.48 and a support level at 45. So right now we're about halfway there between that trading range.
Elon Musk and his commitment to the company. But there's still a lot to like out there about Tesla if you look at the numbers. And that's what our next guest does. Matt Winkler, he's editor-in-chief emeritus of Bloomberg News. He founded Bloomberg News. To me, that's the point here. And he joins us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio. Matt, thanks so much for joining us.
All right. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great structural nano silver soaps that I have. These are soaps that I use on a daily basis. Very high quality, help support the work that I do, and help support your health and wellness. You can get it in charcoal tea tree, lemongrass, and you can also get it in lavender and peppermint. Very high quality structural nano silver soaps. Get a few bars for your household. Help support the work that I do. This stuff right here that I do, that I publish, is for free. So you can learn on how to make money on the market and how to help with your health and wellness. And I give you a little bit of my perspective on what's going on in international affairs or even with domestic policy. So please help support the work that I do by purchasing the great products that I offer. I also have deodorants, dual purpose, that helps to detoxify your body, and you use it as a deodorant. It's for males and females. It's made from essential oils from the Himalayas. It has no aluminum, no baking soda. It's all natural essential oils from the Himalayas. Very high quality. You can get it in peppermint, lavender, and tea tree, and you can get it in citrus. I've partnered up with Rainbow Herbals, and we've created these deodorant bars to help to improve your health and wellness. So please go to my store, get a few bars for your household, help support the work that I do. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. You spend $150 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. All right, let's listen into Live Now, see what they are stating here.
8 in the morning over on the West Coast as we are following this major breaking news story. Several live images coming out of that courthouse in downtown Manhattan. You see there one of Diddy's stepsons. We also saw several of those family members getting into this car here that has been parked and stationed out there every day for this trial in the last several weeks. We are anticipating perhaps some more of reaction, and I may be getting some reaction at this time right now. Not entirely sure, but I'm going to head over to some of these comments. Going to be talking to my producers here. All right, heading out to some more comments. I do believe they're live outside of that courthouse.
But we understand beyond a reasonable doubt is a high standard, and we're just pleased that that he still faces substantial jail time. All right, thank you. Doug Wigdor, W-I-G-D-O-R. Well, each is faces up to 10 years on each. I'm not sure what the sentencing guidelines are given the various different things, but I'll leave that up to the government and the defense to argue. But I feel confident in saying he still faces substantial incarceration. How would you feel if he walks out on bail? Well, that's up to the judge. I don't have a personal vested interest in this case. Whatever the appropriate thing to do under the law is what should be done. And at the end of the day, he needs to be sentenced pursuant to the guidelines and pursuant to what the law is. My understanding of that is that he faces significant incarceration. So thank you very much. Thank you.
He's the attorney for Kathy Ventura.
Yeah, Wigdor.
Let's listen to CNBC about
But turns like towards his chair and starts.
It's about bank boost payouts.
U.S. are boosting dividends and stock buybacks, sending a clear sign of capital strength following the Fed's latest stress test. And just ahead of earnings season, our next guest says this is one of the most attractive entry points into the banking sector in decades. Joining us now, Stephen Alexopoulos, TD Cowen, U.S. large cap bank analyst. Stephen, great to have you with us. It's interesting to say that this is the best time right now, considering so many banks have run up and are sitting at new highs as we speak. And so I'm wondering what you see as the next catalyst. It seems like there was very little reaction to the release of the capital plans last night, which indicates that everything was baked into the stock to this point.
Yeah, so to be clear, I'm not bullish on the sector because of what you heard related to the stress test. To me, that's small potatoes in terms of what will ultimately make in the banks. They run up. Banks are trading at around 10.5 times forward earnings. Long term, they've been about 13 times. I think we'll head 13 to 15 range. And Melissa, I'd like your viewers to think a little differently about AI. Now, when you think about where we are right now with AI, we're at the builder level, right? The focus is NVIDIA, the focus is OpenAI, the builders. I believe we're inside of 2 years, maybe one, where the focus will widen out from the builders to who is going to use this technology to unlock massive economic value. This is exactly what we saw on the internet, right? As the internet was being built, the focus was on Cisco, IBM. And then as the layer was built, it moved to Google, right, with search, and Amazon, right, selling commerce. And I think when you think about the S&P 493, this is what a lot of, honestly, strategists just miss. You have to say which of those companies are going to use this new technology, right? To think that the Mag 7 are spending all this money on AI to have a $20 a month chatbot is insane. They're building a technology that there will be 100 of me that I'll be able to leverage in the future. So what does that mean? You need to focus on sectors that are reliant on people, right? Knowledge workers. That is what will be disrupted with artificial intelligence. Now, if you take all of the sectors, the number 2 sector out there that's reliant on people behind the scenes who look at information, pull information, send information, it's banks, right? And just at the JP Morgan Investor Day a couple of weeks back, Marianne Lake, head of the consumer bank, talked about, think about this. In the next 5 years, headcount in the consumer bank will decline about 10% from where it is today. Business growth will continue. The headcount will come down. I worked at JP Morgan for 18 years. It's conservative with their estimates. That's probably going to be 20%. This is not linear. This is hockey stick, right? So when you think about who will benefit from artificial intelligence taking out massive costs out of the back office, once that conversation starts.
And that is the problem that I've been saying. That there's going to be a decoupling of labor and capital. And in the first phase of this, for the economy, there's going to be increased productivity gains for companies, and their stock price will go up. Their competitors will have to do something similar with using AI to become competitive. But the problem is that to do that, you have to lay people off. See, it starts with don't hire new entrants in the industry. These college students are looking for their first after college job, their entry level job, and they're not getting hired. That's the first sign of this. The second sign of it is they're not going to be hiring additional experienced workers. More AI is being implemented in these different industries, not just banking, in engineering and in medicine and everything. No matter what the industry is, unless it's like labor, until a humanoid robot is implemented by Tesla and some other companies. But with white collar jobs and even some blue collar jobs, what you're going to be seeing is this entry level positions will be eliminated. Hiring experienced workers will start to decline. And as the companies become more efficient in using AI, they're going to start laying off people, and they're not going to hire them. And so what's going to happen is there's a decoupling, or what I call the decoupling of labor and capital. So in the first phase of this, stock prices will go up because they're more profitable. But there's going to be a feedback loop as more and more companies do this, and there's a contagion that takes place within industries of hiring less, being more productive. There'll be a feedback loop that actually is going to show that the economy is now faltering because people aren't employed, but companies are making record profits. There's going to be more upheaval in politics. More people are going to push for socialism or the universal income and not realize that both of those policies are going to be less productive and the economy will spiral down. And because individuals aren't buying in the economy, then the analysts are going to start downgrading these stocks. So first, stocks will start to go up because of efficiency, reducing headcount and becoming more efficient. And so their bottom line, their net income starts to go up. So their stocks are going to go up. Then many other companies are going to follow. And then all of a sudden, because lots of companies are starting to lay off, even though there's productivity gains, the ones that are laid off aren't getting rehired. And because they're laid off, then they're going to start asking for more social welfare. So there's going to be a shift that's going on in politics. And then on top of it, you're going to see a recession, but it's not a cyclical recession. Cyclical meaning people are laid off and then they're rehired. That's not what's going to happen. It's going to be structural. And with structural unemployment, it's going to take years, if ever, for you to be reemployed into your industry. Now, some new jobs will be created, but as these new jobs are being created, AI is taking more jobs away. So the net result is less jobs available for humans. And I've been saying this, I wrote a book about it. I mean, I've been saying this for a long time. I've been saying this since 2015, 2016. All right, that AI is going to be, it's going to lead to a dystopia if it's used improperly. And he just stated that this is what the banks are doing. They're going to start weaning the back office, and they're going to save a lot of money, and their stock price is going to skyrocket. But other back offices in other industries are going to do the same thing. So what do these individuals do when they're laid off? When all the companies out there are doing the same thing. Not everyone's going to start their own company. Not everyone has the either capital means or the intellectual prowess to be able to have and run a company. So what does the average person do? So what happens is that people stop buying. There's a deeper recession, maybe a depression. And then analysts will start cutting the guidance and the share price for these companies that rode that big wave. First there'll be a big wave of higher share price, but then all of a sudden it'll start to collapse. And so this idea of having 30 times earnings for the stock price, so earnings per share, and then usually it's a multiple of that. In some industries, it may be 9. In other industries, it's 15. When there's a boom, it could be, higher than that. On average, you want about 15 times earnings, right? But when you have less people being employed and buying less, then those multiples for the earnings per share, they're going to be going down. So instead of 15 times earnings or 20 times earnings, it's going to be like 2 or 3 times earnings. That means the stock market will crash, and it will be like, first it's going to go up. We'll see a 10,000 S&P 500 or higher before this. But if there's a massive layoff of individuals, it's going to cause a demand disruption, and many things won't be bought, and it's going to cause a depression. And when that happens, the stock price, these indices and these companies will lose value by more than 50%. But first, there's a big blip up first. There's a hockey stick kind of increase in the actual market cap. And this could take about 2, 3, 4, 5 years before the big crash. All right. So if you can time it right, you can ride that wave and then cash out. All right. And then what's going to happen is that as the economy starts to falter, cash will be king. All right. Having cash or having, some sort of liquid asset, maybe even gold would be, in this case, and I'm not a gold bug. But the thing is that, but we have to go through this wave. Now, how long does that wave happen? No one really knows. But if people don't get hired and there is a decoupling of capital and labor, there will be a depression. I mean, who buys it? Who buys the goods and services? So it's a big problem. So to make this equalize, there needs to be massive decline in population to stabilize prices, because there would be too many people, literally too many people. So it's a big problem. It's a big problem. People need to pay attention to it. And when you listen to these people that are going, oh, we're going to be, squeezing out, the labor force, and we're going to be so much more profitable. All right. Well, what happens when everybody does that? Oh, the stock market's going to be great. Really? What happens when people are laid off and they're not buying goods and services? These companies won't be selling anything. So it's a negative feedback loop.
My sector is going to be on your news channel very frequently. And then people are going to say, which of these are going to benefit the most?
And these people aren't that dumb. All right. Some of them are. But they know that if this plays out, they will be very wealthy. And you won't be. That's the game that's being played here. There's going to be a 5% that knows how to play this. They'll be very wealthy. And then the other 95% of the population in the United States is going to get the shit into the stick. And you're going to be on universal income.
Right? JP Morgan is leading, but they're all following on this.
So you're starting the conversation now. So let's have it. Let's use that example of JP Morgan. If you actually apply that and assume that headcount is going to come down by 10% in consumer, and you've got the same growth trajectory.
Yeah. Now let's say it's 10 or 15%. Now imagine that across the whole country. You're talking about a much higher unemployment rate. And these people aren't going to get, they're not going to get reemployed. Very small percentage will. Very small percentage would create companies. Just imagine the workforce out there. 10, 15, or 20% reduced in the next 3 years. That's where this is going. Because you wanted to do AI generation. Because you wanted to use AI to get information. Every time you do that, you're feeding the AI. You're making it smarter. And it's not even AI. It's not even artificial intelligence. It's pseudo-intelligence. It's fake intelligence. They want to make you think it's intelligent, but it really isn't. But it's going to take, it's for sure going to take your job. So the debate is, what should it really be called? Artificial intelligence or pseudo-intelligence? Maybe even pseudo-super-intelligence or pseudo-general intelligence, but it's not intelligence. That's debatable, what to call it. What's not debatable is how it's going to take your job away. That will happen. There will be massive layoffs.
What does that mean to its valuation? I mean, we're talking about JP Morgan, which I think has the highest price to book in the group. It's like 2.3 or so. So, on a valuation basis, it's richly valued relative to itself and its peers.
Melissa,
so how
it's
do you
only richly valued relative to history.
Phoenix Energy is fueling America's future. We're also dedicated to helping you build toward your future financial goals.
Right, and that history did not include the most transformational technology of our lifetimes. Banks will break to a new valuation paradigm. Everybody who's a historian that looks at, well, banks were trading here, we think they'll trade back there, they're missing this. This is a transformational technology.
Should it be 3 on a price to book basis? Should it be? I mean, what?
Yes.
What kind of?
This will be by the end of next year. This will be $1 trillion market cap company. And by the way, as JP Morgan goes from 15, 16, 17 times as they're leveraging AI, their bottom line. Think about this: the earnings growth of JP Morgan will be comparable to the S&P 500, and they're also using AI to reduce risk, right? AI is being used as a tool with credit decisions, portfolio management, and it's being used as a tool to improve customer experience, right? One of the other things, I don't know if you caught this in the Investor Day, they talked about they're now moving out of pilot phase.
People are not paying attention. There are benefits with AI for productivity gains, but those productivity gains, if it's going to change the labor composition and unemployment starts to tick up and it's structural, then there is going to be a contagion that takes place, because some of these people that get laid off, many of them, they own homes. They have credit card debt. They own, they have car payments. So if they're laid off, they can't make these payments. The banks are going to have credit risk with their customers because of this structural unemployment that takes place. So they're going to make profit at the beginning, but then all of a sudden there's a feedback loop where they're going to lose a lot. So people need to pay attention to this. And if this does happen, all right, and it happens within a 2 or 3 year period, and there's major structural unemployment, then you're talking about another Lehman event. The contagion of this is severe. because people that have jobs usually have some sort of car loan or mortgage or credit card payments. And these are all or even insurance. They pay insurance, medical insurance, or even, life insurance or whatever, property insurance. When they're working, they're, saving for their retirement or they're investing. When they're laid off, they're not going to do that. So it's going to crash the market. But they keep on pushing, well, we're going to be more productive. And they don't realize that they're building up a contagion, just like they thought that if we get rid of the risk on the balance sheet for these mortgages, then we're safe. And so they wrap up and securitize these mortgage-backed securities or obligations, and then have derivatives off of that. And then when people started getting laid off and they couldn't make their payment, then the whole thing collapsed. And that was Lehman. All right. Well, there's some regulation now on the way the derivative market's working, but Lehman is going to be a firecracker compared to the loss of jobs because of AI. There's no way to heal it. With Lehman, you could heal it by pumping more money into the market. Eventually, there's a transmission mechanism that takes place and people are rehired. Well, if AI is taking the jobs, how do people get rehired? The only way this is going to happen is if there's legislation that states that you can use AI to supplant a worker. That's the only way to prevent this. But this is how it's going to play out. Now, I don't see a better solution here. I've spent since 2016 thinking about this very topic, and I have not heard any economic theory that's positive where mass implementation of AI at the workforce level is going to be beneficial for the economy and people's well-being in households. Will this society do things that it never could do before and faster? Yes. I'm not saying that there's not benefits of AI, but the thing is that when you decouple labor and capital, what's going to happen is there's going to be a massive unemployment, and it's going to be structural. And when that happens, who's going to buy the goods and services that the companies are selling? Who's going to take out a loan from JP Morgan? They're going to default on their loan because they got laid off from massive implementation of AI. So they're going to have to, JP Morgan is going to have to put loan provisions on their balance sheet because of these defaults that start to take place. And then as the economy starts to falter and you start to see a precipitous drop in the S&P 500, this is years away. Like I said, you'll hit 10,000 S&P 500 before this happens, but it's years away. But when it does happen, then these banks are going to ask for a bailout from the government. And the society, it's so structural that the people that are laid off are going to demand socialism. So Mondami is just a hint, just a trailer of the big movie that's going to be playing out when there's massive structural unemployment because of AI. And that socialism is going to come in. So AI, the use of AI is actually promoting, through the emergent property, AI promotes collectivism in the politic, not individualism. And so we need laws in place where companies cannot do this because it will destroy capitalism. Decoupling labor and capital will destroy capitalism, and it'll usher in socialism.
Tomorrow, their mobile app is going to get a personalized landing page, AI driven. So, Melissa, if I told you banks historically traded at 13 times, that was the average over 20 years. But now we have a technology that's going to take out massive cost. It's going to reduce risk dramatically.
Wait a minute. take out massive costs, okay, because it's laying off people. It's going to use the AI for risk adjustment for loans. But isn't that what the whole securitization was going on with the mortgage-backed securities and these derivatives? That was supposed to reduce risk. See, this is the point I'm making. It's a different scenario. It's a different case, but it has a similar rhyme. And that is take off risk off the balance sheet through these complex models, financial engineer, use AI to tell us that we're reduce risk, reduce our exposure to subprime borrowers that may be laid off from this structural unemployment phase, and we won't have any risk. But the thing is, other companies will have risk. For example, let's say you buy clothing. Let's say Macy's. Macy's takes out a loan through a bank or issues bonds, all right, to investment firms. And Macy's starts to lose customers because AI has laid off a bunch of people. Macy's starts having problems with sales. They can't make their bond payment. They can't pay their loans to the bank. And now the bank has exposure. See, what he's saying, he thinks he's reducing risk. He didn't take the lessons learned from Lehman. And that is, if you don't have a healthy economy, how are the ones that have borrowed money going to pay their obligations? So he thinks, this guy thinks that you can mitigate risk by using AI, but yet this AI to save costs by laying people off, and many other companies are going to do this. There's just less people buying stuff. And that's exactly what happened right before Lehman. People started worrying about their job. It wasn't subprime didn't start Lehman. Where it started was higher gas prices. People started to slow down their consumption. And these were prime borrowers. And then all of a sudden it started collapsing because they thought the risk was mitigated through these complex derivatives that they had on their balance sheet. Well, how's that any different than using AI to try to mitigate risk? We're walking right into another Lehman, but it's going to be a lot bigger because it's going to be structural, not cyclical.
It's going to improve the client experience. And I said, okay, we're still going to trade it 13 times. That would be ridiculous. We are going to break to a new paradigm upside, right? Not to mention deep
short-term implementation of AI. The first movers are going to get the benefits, the lower costs, more efficiency. The stock market will go up. The analysts will promote this stock saying that it's more efficient. Other companies are going to follow suit. More people get laid off. And then all of a sudden it speeds up faster and faster as more companies do the same thing in different industries. And then all of a sudden people stop paying their mortgages, mortgage-backed security market starts to falter. And there's a major bailout that will have to take place by the Federal Reserve. And then you add in the whole social disruption and this push for socialism. Because once you realize that AI took your job away forever, are you going to vote Republican? Are you going to vote for a Democrat? No, because how are you going to feed your family? This is a huge risk that's taking place. And in my book, I stated that the only way to fight this, the only way to fight AI and transhumanism is to kill it. The only way, and where's the Achilles heel? Energy. You have to hit the Achilles heel, and that's energy. You got to kill the grid. When you kill the grid, you may go back to the 1700s or 1800s, but you've killed AI. But most people won't do that. Most people didn't even bother to rise up and protest against these bioweapon labs. Most people didn't even protest to feed their child when infant meal was not available in the United States. Women didn't protest about that when Biden reduced the supply of food for an infant. And when the mother doesn't protest, when food is not available for their children, or when the greater society doesn't protest when there was bioweapons that were released on the population, do you think that they're really gonna do what I just said to do to kill AI? Of course not, because everyone's a fucking keyboard warrior until boom, the problem happens, and then it's too late. People are gonna be suckers. They're gonna be suckers.
Regulation is helping the banks. Net interest margins have bottomed. That's going to help the banks. So you said I'm the most bullish in years. The only other 2 times I've been this bullish on the banks were coming out of GFC and then after the regional bank crisis. This
Stephen,
is one of those opportunities.
You may very well be right, and for those who are in the banking business, I hope you are. But my question for you is,
oh, he's right, but he doesn't understand what's after that. Earnings per share will go up. The multiple will go up. The market cap will go up. Efficiencies will go up. Labor in the banking industry will go down, but other industries are going to follow suit. And when that happens, there is going to be structural unemployment, a decoupling of labor and capital. And that happens, then analysts will start to see, well, wait a minute, we're going into a structural recession, maybe depression. We can't have a 17 multiple on these banks anymore because they have risk exposure to defaults of loans. It's going to go down to 10. And then it may get even worse. It may go down to 5. And then all of a sudden you start having riots. What happens when you have people like Mondani getting elected in the primaries at the local level, state level, and even at the federal level and pushing socialism? Are you willing to stand up for your constitutional rights? Then probably not, because you didn't do it when your kids couldn't eat. You didn't do it during the bioweapon warfare that we just had. You sure as hell ain't going to do it for AI. And to put salt in the wound, you're feeding the AI that's going to take your fucking job.
you know, AI largely is a disruptive technology. And you would also imagine that while it would help bring down the headcount and create the efficiencies that you're describing inside banks, it would also help competitors be able to actually replicate and create lots of banking-like services, even if they are not regulated banks. And so I'm curious how you think about that, how you think about the margins that exist within, frankly, some parts of the financial system that may get undone by tokenization and some of the things that are taking place with crypto and everything else.
Okay, Andrew. Well, crypto is a different story. So I'm very bullish on the sector as it relates to AI and the benefit to the entire bank sector. Now, when you talk about
short term, within the next 1 to 5 years, what happens after that 5 years? What happens after that 3 years? When there's structural unemployment throughout all the sectors. Lehman, that's what's going to happen.
Stable coins, right? With the Circle IPO doing what it did and the Genius Act getting passed, that was the Steve Jobs moment when he held up the first iPhone in 2007. This is going to completely transform banking and payments as we know it today, right? The way business to business cross-border payments work today, it's like when you used to have switchboards and people would try and call the other half of the country and you go through 6 switchboards. It's usually inefficient, it's very expensive, and the customers don't like it. This stablecoins will transform the payments business, particularly cross-border. That's why I am, even though I'm very bullish, I'm cautious on a name like Citigroup, because Citigroup's crown jewel business is this business, cross-border. Payments overall about 7% of revenue for the large banks. That's what we're very focused on. So 7% potentially at risk. I think over time, stable coins will overtake non-interest bearing deposits. If you're a CFO, I can't imagine, even you hear banks talk about tokenized deposits now. I'm a CFO of a company and I could keep my company's capital in a stable coin, which was reserved back 1-for-1 versus a deposit or tokenized deposit, which is lent out or invested longer term, I'm going the stable coin route.
Right.
So
this is another issue. I think, and I had to think about this a little bit more, but you remember back during Lehman where cash mutual funds, all right, broke the buck, meaning that the value, what you thought was 100% safe to have in a money market account, it broke the buck. It was worth less during the financial crisis of 2008. So it's called breaking the buck. All right. Well, how's that any different? How is stablecoin any different than a money market that's 1-for-1? When you have when you decouple labor and capital, you're going to break the buck, even with stablecoin. I'm telling you, this is exactly what was playing out like in 2004, 2005. I don't even know the guy's name that did the Big Short, and he happened to be an MD and then decided to go into finance, right? All right. So, but the whole point I'm making here is that it's emerging right now. What was happening in the economy in 2003, 2004, 2005? There was a build-up of taking risk off the balance sheet because of financial engineering. And they thought they were safe, not understanding the contagion that they were building up. There's an added layer here, and that is AI is going to set the world on fire because of a structural unemployment that will start to ensue within 3 to 5 years. I'm sure that if you have a mortgage, it's not going to get paid off within 3 or 5 years. Right? So how are you going to, if you lose your job, how are you going to pay for your house? How are you going to pay for your car? How are you going to pay for your kids' education? How are you going to pay for food? You think that universal income is going to do all that for you? Yeah, bullshit. See the point that I'm making? And these people that they're promoting this crap, they didn't learn the fucking lessons in 2008. When you have a financial contagion, which we will have, it's going to break the buck. So money markets are going to be fucked up, and same thing with stablecoin. Because remember, it's back 1-for-1. Well, that's what a money market was. But when you have illiquidity in all markets, it crashes. Now, does that mean the crash is coming tomorrow? Absolutely not. But it's coming. It's coming because of AI.
Different argument, and there I am cautious.
All right. Amazing. It's amazing. They are reliving, setting up in a different way with it, because history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes. But they're setting up for another financial crash. And they don't, and the sad thing is they don't even realize it. They don't even realize it's happening. So the best thing you can do is start finding ways where you are benefiting from this rally up, because there's going to be a sell-off coming down and you want to be prepared. All right. And I'm trying to help you with that. All right. So please help support the work that I do to inform you. I mean, who's telling you this kind of stuff? All right. Who's telling you that stablecoin is causing an emergent property that's very similar of breaking the buck if there was a major financial crisis because of massive layoffs because of AI? That stablecoin will break the buck very similar to money markets back during Lehman. No one's telling you that because no one has the foresight like I have. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and make sure that you help support the work that I do. All right. There's 2 things you need to do to prepare yourself for this dystopia. That is, you got to build up your body. You got to get healthy because you're not going to be able to depend on healthcare. The next thing is that you want to learn on how to make yourself more financially stable, more financially self-sufficient. All right. No one is an island. All right. Everyone's interconnected. But if you get to a point where you can ride this wave, you will fare way better. Just imagine if you had this kind of advice right before Lehman. All right. You would have fared way better on the other side. Right. Well, that's what I'm trying to tell you. You better pay attention because it's coming, but it's not like around the corner, but it will be in your lifetime. So improve your health and improve your finances. I'm telling you how to do it. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the supplements that I take to actually slow down the aging process so you can weather the storm. If you have chronic problems and this event happens 5 years from now or even later, do you think that your body is going to be able to absorb the shock? Probably not. You'll probably have a heart attack. All right. So it's important that you help the health of your body, learn, keep that brain function active, right? And be aware of what's going on. Stop being a sheep, start being a wolf. All right. Start being a wolf. You gotta protect your pack, whoever that pack is. All right. You gotta be a wolf. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great products that I offer. Now let's talk about what I take to improve my health. Omega-3 is really important to take because what it's going to do is it's going to help to prevent overclotting. Red blood cells stick together, but the omega-3 helps to reduce that stickiness so you don't overclot. That's really important, all right? That helps with your cardiovascular health. Omega-3 also helps to bring down systemic inflammation. And omega-3 helps to control your lipid profile, helping to lower your LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. There are a lot of people out there that have to take pharmacopoeia like statins, right? Because they have a poor cholesterol level. They have high LDL and low LDL. Well, if you work out, you're increasing your HDL. If you eat properly, you're lowering your LDL, but a little bit. You got to like give it a little bit of kick, right? And you can do that through supplementation, right? There's lots of ways to do it. One way is to take omega-3 to help to bring down that LDL and to help to raise that HDL and work out. And by doing that, you're going to be able to slowly bring down your total cholesterol number and bring it into range. All right. You don't want to go into pharmacopoeia because of all the side effects. Trust me on this. All right. There's ways to do it where you don't need to be on pharmacopoeia. So take omega-3, do that exercise, bring down those LDL levels. Less LDL means less oxidized LDL means less plaque buildup. All right. And it also helps to bring up that HDL. Now you couple that with a bunch of other stuff that's in my cardiovascular box, and guess what? You're reducing plaque formation and you're reducing the probability of additional plaque. All right? It works. I'm telling you how to save your life and not have to be on pharmacopoeia, on a beta blocker or on some bullshit statin. But so many people are, and you don't need to be in the United States. Chronic diseases in the United States, most of them, the three big ones, it's not because of your genetics. It's not because of your epigenetics. It's because of your lifestyle. So get off the fucking couch and start working out and start eating properly and taking the proper supplementation. And if you stack these things the right way, you won't have diabetes. You won't have heart disease. It's very simple. But people just don't pay attention. Just like people aren't paying attention to the emergent property that's going to happen to the job market when you decouple labor and capital. Good night formula. Very important to take every day. It has tryptophan, melatonin, GABA, and passion flower. It's going to help you detoxify your central nervous system. You'll be well rested, and it'll help to consolidate memory. It gets you into those cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep to allow for that detoxification and that consolidation of memory. Super important. Now, if people are sleep deprived chronically, guess what? Your memory starts to fade. Clarity factor gets rid of brain fog. Take it every day, drink it with filtered water. And by getting those neurons firing, you're going to have positive neuroplasticity. Learn new things, talk to people, read a book, like a real book, not an ebook, even though I made ebooks on my website. But read a real book, cover to cover, stop having excuses, learn new things, work out, use the 4 modalities of working out, resistance training, running, stretching, balancing exercises. Those are very important. Take the clarity factor. It's going to get rid of that brain fog. It's going to help to support your memory. You're going to get that positive neuroplasticity where you have those dendritic connections that are going to connect to other neurons and you're building a neural network. That's how you think faster. That's how your memory improves. When they start to recede, then your memory starts to fade. Your thinking starts to be slower, right? You don't want that. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the clarity factor. Have you noticed that people that are over scrolling with, TikTok or X or, other social media, that they start to think slower? You notice that they don't have a vocabulary anymore. You notice that their attention span is a lot less. All right. Now, if you care about that person, you want them to stop that behavior so they can go back to being a thinking human being. But there's going to be a big part of society that doesn't pay attention. And the ones that do what I'm telling to do, if you do what I'm saying to do, then you're going to be able to leapfrog over all these stupid people. Like radically, even if you don't have, let's say your intelligence is at 110, all right? And average is 100, all right? Let's say its average is 100, and then now with social media, the average has gone down to 90. And you haven't exposed yourself to the social media as much, and you've maintained your 110 IQ. Then instead of being 10 points above the average, you're now 20 points above the average. And 110 isn't that smart. I mean, it's higher than above average, but you want to be at the 140, 150, 160 mark. The real, the super smart individuals at the 200 or higher, right? But the thing is that the point I'm making is those people that are using social media, overusing it, their IQ is going down, their attention span is going down, their health is going down. You can leapfrog them. You can leapfrog them. You can take advantage of what's going on in the society for your benefit. Now, if you have ethics, you're going to do it in a positive way. If you are amoral, you're going to be Machiavellian. I don't care which way you do it, but this dynamic that's happening is happening now. Right? And if you pay attention, you're going to be able to leapfrog the massive population that is declining in IQ. And their health is declining too. They're eating all these processed foods and having all these problems. Their endocrine system is disrupted and their immune system is disrupted. But you can reverse that. You can get healthy, get smart, and be able to be the wolf and not the sheep. All right? Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. If you spend $150 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. But like I said, stacking things like clarity factor to help with your brain function, stacking it with goodnight formula, it's going to help to consolidate the memory. And clarity factor and goodnight formula together are synergistic to help with the memory. And omega-3 is helping with your cardiovascular health. And with better blood flow, you're going to actually improve your brain. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. And it's really important to realize in 5 years, people aren't going to pay attention to what's happening. And in 5 years, you're going to have cognitive decline. 5 years. 5 years. You're going to see surround your social network, many people starting to have early onset of dementia. There's 3 reasons why. with different probabilities, different percentages of the population and different probabilities of what's happening. All right. But it's happening. It's happening. It's happening now. But it's just, it's a signal in the data in terms of prevalence just starting. In 5 years, it's going to ramp up. Now, what are you doing to prepare for that? Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
People in this kind of field who are studying this issue, would really like to see that come back. And just in general, for there to be more oversight, more monitoring, and frankly, better technology for tracking what's happening below the surface.
Laura, thank you so much for joining us. Laura Bliss, reporter, Bloomberg Business Week, joining us from San Francisco. Got the big take story here talking about pollution. Check it out. For our listeners in the U.S., a reminder, you can listen to us via satellite radio on Sirius XM Channel 121 across the world. Only global audio business network, coast to coast, 24 hours a day. Stay with us. Your top stories and global business headlines are coming up right now.
Welcome back. Clinched the Democratic nomination for New York City mayor. Mamdani describes himself as a Democratic socialist, and his win has caused some anxiety on Wall Street and within the Democratic Party. In the latest episode of my podcast, the Master Investor Podcast, I spoke with former Treasury Secretary.
Now think about this. What happens if you have Democratic socialists at the federal level on the ticket during the primaries? And during that period of time, unemployment is starting to become structural because of AI. See, right now, Mamdani is kind of like canary in the coal mine, right? He's a test subject, right? And Wall Street's going to is having a shit fit right now. Can you imagine what happens when unemployment starts to happen because of AI? And you have these Democratic socialists coming on board. They are going to win. They will win. Mamdani, I don't know will win or not. All right. Maybe it's 50-50. Maybe the odds are slightly against him for the mayor of New York. But when unemployment and you have something like a Lehman event take place, that's how Barack Obama got into office. And Barack Obama was more closeted in terms of his socialism and communism than Mamdani. You got to give it to Mamdani. At least he's being forthright. Barack Obama wasn't forthright. But the point here is that there's going to be a groundswell of democratic socialism if we don't control and regulate AI.
Jack Lew, who of course served in the Obama administration, and I asked him whether socialism could work for America.
The policies that he's outlined are not policies that are good for New York. He's running for mayor of New York, and I worry deeply, having spent most of my life in New York, about a city that I call home. I see a similarity between the kind of policy solutions to the left and the right, and that satisfy populist sentiment, don't always go through the filter of do they work? I don't think they work, and I think that's a problem. One of the things I'll say about New York is that New York is not an entirely independent governing entity. Many of the policies have to be approved by the state, either legislature or governor. So it's a process where you have more centrist political voices that will still be very much in a position to determine whether or not different tax and spending policies can take effect. I think the Democratic Party is well served by building the center out, and that means appealing to the center left and the center right. I think going to either extreme in either party tends to polarize the country. So that's my own personal view, but I really can't speak to the party politics part of it.
And you can watch the full interview where we, of course, talk about the big, beautiful bill, the deficit, the debt, the dollar, his advice for investors and policymakers on leadership on the Master Investor podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. And guys, I mean, you know Jack Lew better than me, Sarah, and David, you know New York as well as anyone, but he's always measured in what he says, Jack Lew. And he didn't get directly involved in the politics, but I was struck by how explicit he was about the policies that we're clearly talking about, to criticize them so overtly.
Well, he did not do what Bill Clinton did, which was congratulate Zoran Mandani. This is, I mean, Jack Lew is kind of a poster child for the liberal administrations in recent history. He was in the Clinton administration, Obama, several roles: chief of staff, OMB director, Treasury Secretary, and then Biden's U.S. ambassador to Israel. He is very representative of all those administrations, and the fact that he is distancing and saying this would be bad for New York, I think shows you how different and the sort of soul searching going on in the Democratic Party right now.
Yeah,
we heard it from Peter Orszag as well.
We did last week.
Really
I thought
denounced
where
the
his
anti-Semitism.
comments were quite significant in terms of what he was talking about in the Democratic Party being potentially anti-Semitic and anti-capitalist. Those were his words. Eric Adams is, obviously still in the race, and there's a lot to yet to go, and we'll see if he can garner the necessary turnout, really, that would reflect, I think, more on what Lew is talking about in terms of the moderate bent of most New Yorkers.
Probably market hasn't changed.
You know how large the budget of the city of New York is, Sarah?
110 billion?
115 billion. You know how large the state of Florida's budget is?
Much smaller.
115 billion.
Oh, really?
Same. 22 million
Wow.
people. We got 8 million.
What percentage goes on police?
Police is not as large as you'd think.
Really?
The largest is benefits and pensions. So healthcare, it's about 10 billion. And then other fringe benefits, and then pensions. So that's together equates for about 25 billion of the 115 billion. I think education is the number one other line item, and then you move down from there. But these are things that the next mayor is going to have to deal with. How do you maximize revenues to deliver services?
How do you get revenues?
Yeah, as opposed to antagonizing the people who are paying the taxes.
Exactly.
Because they can leave.
That's just one
as
issue.
can the businesses.
One issue with socialism.
We are going to talk a bit more about that at about 11:30, but let's talk a bit more about the markets here. Oppenheimer Chief Investment Strategist John Stolfus joins us now. John, great to see you.
Terrific to be here, Wilfred.
What do you think happens if the One Big Beautiful Bill passes? Do we get a 1% jump in the markets, a fall by the rumor, sell the fact? What do you expect?
I tell you, I think the market likely will have a modest gain if it does happen. But I think the reason why it will.
Let me show you an example how stupid society is. All right. So we're going to go to live now talking about the Diddy trial. All right. Now, remember, keep it into the context of what I just said about how stablecoin could break the buck, very similar to how money markets happened during the Lehman crash. Keep it in the context of how does a society pay their bills when there's a decoupling of labor and capital? Well, you have dipshits talking crap about things that aren't important. So let's just play a little bit of this.
Those people with their swagger and influence usually gets away with things, but every now and then you see it work differently. Nobody expected Martha Stewart to go to prison, but she did. Nobody expected Lori Loughlin to go to prison, but she did. And they had the money and the coins to kind of protect themselves in these situations. And every now and then, the law be lawing. But every now and then, you can find your way out.
Head crack from Dish Nation. Thank you so much for.
Think about this. Another podcaster talking shit that doesn't really matter. I just gave you the playbook on how society is going to unravel. And people are talking about the Diddy trial. I'll tell you. I'm just waiting for the fucking asteroid. Because mankind deserves getting hit by an asteroid.
Charges of transporting prostitutes. Arjun Grasso will have a whole lot more coming up on time. S&P up 0.3%.
Oh, come on.
Then once again.
Island Amon here. We've got a lot of headlines to walk through and a lot of news to experience so far today. Thank you, as always, Charlie. We'll be back with Mr. Pellet, the voice of Wall Street and the New York subway, a little bit later on this hour to check on the Wednesday trade. Feels kind of like a Friday, depending on what you're up to here. And that is essentially how we're playing this in Washington, D.C., because lawmakers want to get out of town, having been brought back to town, at least House
heaven
members.
forbid they do their job.
What they hope will be a vote on the president's big, beautiful bill. Now, there's something going on right now. We've got our eyes on the House floor for you. Enter the UC storm. What you're seeing right now on YouTube, if you join us, search Bloomberg Business News Live on YouTube to get our live video stream. Members of the Congressional Black Caucus are now lining up in an effort to delay this process here with a storm of unanimous consent requests. Members asking for consent. The Democratic amendments are heard at the desk. This prevents the process from moving forward here. So we're, again, in this procedural mode where the gears are grinding very slowly, but at some point we could, in fact, see a vote on a rule, which would lead us to a floor vote on the big, beautiful bill. All this, by the way, is noise. If you ask Speaker Mike Johnson, at least publicly, the message he delivered on Sean Hannity's show on Fox. Don't sweat the details. This thing is almost done. Here's the Speaker.
85 to 90% of this bill is the House-generated product. The Senate made some modifications to it. They made it more conservative in some places and moderated it a little bit in others. But I tell you what, as the president said so well today, this is no longer just a House bill. It's not a Senate bill. It's the bill of the people, of the hardworking American people, and we are going to deliver it. As you said, Sean, by July 4th. It is so critically important. Remember, we got a clear mandate from the people in November to do this.
What, me worry? Of course, July 4th is in 2 days, and I'm pretty sure we don't even have all the lawmakers back into town. Let's get the state of play right now from Laura Davison, who, of course, is our Deputy Bureau Chief in Washington, D.C., a longtime tax reporter turned news editor and manager. Great to see you. No one slept this week. I don't know what's coming up next, but do you think we actually get a rule vote today? Let's take this one step at a time.
So it's very possible that we get a rule vote here sometime in the next couple hours. You know, this Democratic strategy of trying to delay the vote is actually quite interesting.
Yeah.
Because if you were to have the vote, if they were to not delay and move directly into this vote, you'd see Republicans in chaos. So they're essentially giving Republicans a little bit more time to negotiate behind the scenes before they actually have to come forward. On this rule vote, it is very likely, at least from talking to folks in the hallway, that this vote goes down, which would be, this is procedurally, this is not fatal. They can always come back and take another vote, but it would be a very big and embarrassing blow to the president, and it could inflame tensions that are already not in a great place.
So clearly then Speaker Johnson either does not have or does not know if he has the votes. How far off are the numbers? Does he need 5? Does he need 10? We should let our viewers and listeners know members of the Freedom Caucus, the Fiscal Hawks, are at the White House right now trying to hash this out.
Yeah, there's dozens of members meeting with President Trump throughout the day today. We're probably at the point, and the whip counts are hard because you have a lot of people not saying how they'll vote or undecided, but there's probably about 10 to 12 people right now who are firm, who have kind of said their no's. Johnson needs to get that down to about, 3 people or so. So that's where the complicated math goes. Of course, if you have people who, are stuck at home because of weather delays, you have anyone who is sick, anyone who suddenly can't be there, that also changes all the math, both on the Democratic side and the Republican side. So this gets very complicated, and you can bet that the whips, the members who are in charge of vote counting have massive spreadsheets that they're keeping track of everybody's movements.
And big concerns about, a lot of things, cuts to Medicaid, also debt and deficits, the new score for the Trump tax bill, $3.4 trillion. And just in time for your appearance, Donald Trump posts on Truth Social. The one big beautiful deal is all about growth, he says. If passed, America will have an economic renaissance like never before. He says it's already happening, just in anticipation of the big beautiful bill. But there are great concerns that this would be a debt bomb. And when you ask members of the House Freedom Caucus, they're not singing off the same sheet music here as Donald Trump, are they?
They are not. They are actually in line with a lot of economists who have, espoused a lot of worries that this would mean, really unsustainable debt loads going forward. The bill, based on the Congressional Budget Office, most recent score would add $3.4 trillion over the course of the decade. That's even bigger than this first-term tax bill that was, around $1.7, $1.9 trillion. So these are big, big numbers that we're talking about, alarming, economists, Democrats, and a handful of Republicans who are going to be key votes on this bill.
That's for sure. You mentioned the weather. I'm fascinated by this whole part of the story here. Raja Krishnamurthy with a 14-hour road trip from Illinois. There's thunderstorms all over the country, right? Nancy Mace hired a van for her 9-hour drive from South Carolina. Russell Fry, the 8-hour drive from South Carolina. Is everyone in town, or are we still waiting for arrivals here?
Based on a vote that happened, at 9 o'clock this morning, there were still about 8 Republicans who weren't there, a handful of Democrats. So that also could be a little bit of the reason for the delay. Both sides are trying to make sure they have all their members in town, in the building, able to vote. Another thing, remember when this bill passed the House initially, they did it, it was late overnight into the morning. They had people sleep through it. You better believe that they're going to have people making sure that everyone is aroused and ready.
Well, so, I mean, do you let him go home for the 4th and bring him back if this doesn't get done? Or does Mike Johnson actually keep the House of Representatives in Washington on Independence Day?
I think Trump will go ballistic if they go
leave?
home. So the pressure is to keep them in here, and exhaustion is your friend in this situation. You just keep grinding people down. They're already mad because they don't want to be here. But if further delays, sometimes people just break in those scenarios.
He could have the full Republican conference on the South Lawn to watch the fireworks Friday night.
This president loves pageantry, having a big July 4th tax party. I personally cannot think of anything more fun.
Well, it sounds to me, I have to admit, I feel the same way. It sounds to me like something is going to need to happen here. This needs to break one way or the other in the next 24 hours. Are you watching the Freedom Caucus for signs? How do you know this thing has gone in the wrong direction?
You'll see when they stop talking, that's how you know things have gotten really bad, or they're very close to a deal. And there's there's kind of 2 ways they can cut a deal. One, Trump can promise them something via executive action. That would not require revising the bill. Or they go back and open this bill up, and that means we're calling the Senate back. This is a delay of days, if not weeks.
That moves us into next week. You can only do so much deal making without changing this bill enough that it does have to go back to the Senate. So when we talk about deals being made, promises of executive action is one. How about ornaments on the Christmas tree in the next fiscal year, the budget that will soon be written in this House of Representatives? We're going to hear about side deals through that whole process, aren't we?
This is going to be a huge part of it, because after Republicans, they'll go home, they'll be back a little bit this summer, but the next big project they have is an appropriations bill going into the fall. This puts some of these members who are these fiscal hawk members in an awkward position, because you can't really say you're voting no on a bill because of the cost and then ask for more money for something for your district. But this wouldn't be the first time that a member of Congress would be accused of some hypocrisy.
Well, Rick Davis said yesterday on Balance of Power, pork barrel is back on Capitol Hill. Is that going to be the takeaway here? Not only did this add to the deficit, according to the CBO, but will unleash a series of backroom deals that will be part of a budget process come fall. This is why people hate Washington, right?
This is exactly, though the argument for some of these backroom deals is it helps get people to see sort of what's in it for them. This is the whole argument that if you say, hey, we have a bridge for your district, we have some money for a program that you want, that people can then see the tangible benefits of Washington. But this is why Congress polls so poorly, is that they think that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we'll find out if the president gets involved here. Tom Massey's a hard no, right? That one you can just take to the bank. You're watching Chip Roy, Ralph Norman. Who else should we keep in mind here in the next couple of hours?
There's Andy Ogles. There's Schweikert, a Republican from Arizona, who mysteriously was one who missed that initial vote. He's saying he's a no as of right now.
Did he fall asleep or something? He didn't get back in time? There's going to be stories like that come out of today, right? And tonight?
Yeah, it's going to be just madness as they try to ram this through in the next,
Cue to take out now, drag out the cots. We're in this for the long haul. Laura Davison running the floor in the newsroom right now with a pretty remarkable series of events happening to us. Our Deputy Bureau Chief in Washington. Thank you so much. As always, the insights from Laura Davison will help you.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the gel that I have. You can get it in the quick dispenser or in the tube form. You use it the same way, very high quality. Put it on a wound, it'll help you heal the wound. Use it as an aftershave to soothe your skin. You can use it as a daily skincare. In addition, you can put it on your hands, around your mouth, around your nose, around your eyes, around your ears. Lightly coat your nostrils if you're not feeling well or someone around you is not feeling well. Stays active for 5.5 hours. Have some at home and at work. You never know when you need it. And believe me, you're going to need it. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the very high quality gels that I have. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. Another great stack is the olive leaf extract, which is a dual purpose product with the vitamin B complex. So with the olive leaf extract, you're going to help with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. It brings down inflammation and it helps to control your lipid profile. It brings down LDL levels, increases your HDL levels. Vitamin B complex is going to help with vitamin B complex helps to improve the health of your mitochondria. The first 4 B vitamins boosts up that ATP through the electron transport chain. So that means you have lots of energy for your cells to perform properly. It improves your cellular metabolism through the vitamin B complex, and you're protecting your neurons. Super important, especially if you're 40 years of age. So a great way to protect your neurons and boost up your cellular metabolism, improve your energy levels, and improve your immune system and your cardiovascular health. Take the vitamin B complex and the olive leaf extract together. Please go to my store, use discount 5. Now, the third pillar of my core protocol, super important to take every day. This is going to help with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. Turmeric. Turmeric soaks up free radicals because it's an antioxidant. It's going to bring down inflammation. By bringing down pro-inflammatory cytokines, you're going to help with your immune system because chronic inflammation is immunosuppressive. And so you want to bring that down. You want to bring down that inflammation. And bringing down inflammation at the vascular level is going to help prevent plaque buildup. Ashwagandha root helps to control your glucose levels and your cortisol levels. By bringing down your cortisol levels, you're helping your immune system, and controlling your blood glucose levels, you're reducing that inflammatory response at the vascular level. Super important for your vascular system. And lignans helps your immune system and your endocrine system. Brings down inflammation, soaks up free radicals because it's an antioxidant. Take it every day. It's a powder. Mix it with soft foods or with filtered water. But if you stack them together, you get that supercharged synergy. Taking lignans, ashwagandha root, and turmeric together is going to help with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. Super important. Do this. This is so important to take. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. If you spend $150 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video and all my videos.
It's 12:21 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long here at Bloomberg. Stocks higher, led by tech megacaps as President Trump announces that trade deal with Vietnam. Right now, we got the S&P up 16, up by 0.3%. NASDAQ up 165, up 0.8%. Our Mag 7 index up by 1.3%. The Dow, though, lower by 0.1%. 10-year 4.30% with a 2-year 3.78%. Spot gold up $8 the ounce, 33.47, up 0.3%. West Texas Intermediate crude rallying 1.5% now, 66.45 a barrel. And Bitcoin up 3.3%, back at 109,450 on Bitcoin. UK markets fell sharply, the pound shedding 0.9% right now as investors grow increasingly nervous about the state of Britain's finances. The FTSE 100 index down by just about 0.1%. Health insurer Centene Corp plummeting the most on record today. Centene now down by 40%. Paramount Global reaching a settlement with President Trump over a lawsuit alleging election interference by CBS News. Paramount down 1.1%. And Sean Diddy Combs acquitted today on the top charges of racketeering and sex trafficking, but convicted of lesser charges of transporting prostitutes. Balance of Power continues right now. Back we go to Washington. Once again, your host, here he is, Joe Matthew.
All right, Charlie Pellet, thank you so much. That Centene move is remarkable and something that will play into the conversation that we're about to have with not only a member of Congress, but one of the only physicians who's going to be voting on this bill whenever this does happen, today, tomorrow. We can bring you up to date right now. We're waiting for a vote on a rule here on the House floor, and the potential for a full floor vote could be today, tonight, tomorrow morning, maybe on the 4th of July, as we just discussed with Laura Davison. It appears nobody's going home until this is done, unless, of course, this is really derailed with worries about debt and deficit, with worries about changes, dare I use the word Medicaid, and a couple of other matters. It does seem the SALT caucus has come around, but there are a lot of questions right now about what this is going to bring to the floor. The members of the Freedom Caucus, the fiscal hawks who oppose this, are meeting at the White House right now. And we're joined in studio by a Republican member of Congress who you've heard from before on this program, who is in fact treating
I want to go to CNBC News here about the private sector lost 33,000 jobs in June.
We've got ADP crossing the wires. Let's get to him.
Minus 33,000. ADP saying that non-farm payrolls declined by 33,000. That's substantially below, for the second month in a row, the estimate of 100,000. It is the only decline since March of 2023. Good sector not doing too badly, up 32,000. The losses appear to come from the services sector. We'll show you details in a second, of minus 66,000. And there's the non-farm payroll estimate, which includes government and the private sector, for tomorrow, Thursday, remember, folks, and that's 110,000. It's the second weak month in a row for ADP after downwardly revised 29,000 for May. But it's been running, by the way, substantially weaker than the BLS private sector numbers. We'll give you that in just a second. But first, let's look at which sectors were affected. Small business down 47,000. There's been a lot of speculation as to whether or not the tariffs would be hurting or hitting small business, down 47,000. Medium-sized business down 15,000, but large businesses doing okay, up positive 30,000. The losses were in this professional and business services sector, minus 56,000, but also one of the stalwarts of the job market, education and health services, down 52,000. Financial activities down 14, but manufacturing up 15, and leisure and hospitality still doing well, up 32,000. As for wage,
so businesses, all right, let's roll back the tape there first. I can just read it again. So professional and business services down 56,000, education and health services down 52,000, financial activities down 14,000, and then it was offset by manufacturing and hospitality. So if you took out manufacturing, which all these experts are saying isn't very important, but of course manufacturing is important. I'm a big proponent of bringing back manufacturing in the United States. If you just excluded manufacturing and hospitality and just looked at business services and education and health services, you're talking about over 108,000 of lost jobs through the ADP number. I'm telling you, AI is starting. It's trickling in.
Still doing well, up 32,000. As for wages, the 4.4%, this is, by the way, called for millions of paychecks out there, so it's actually better than the government data. It is up 4.4% for people staying in their jobs. That's down a tick, and 6.8% for job changers. That's down 0.2 from the last month. Note that the average absolute difference, without care to sign, between ADP and the BLS private sector is now up to 77,000 per month. So it's not exactly spot on, and there's some scope for the ADP to be in line with the lower estimates on the street. Guys, I've seen other data that suggests the payrolls will be soft. I think it will. Some of the high frequency data we follow from Homebase, Goldman noting the big data. Also, maybe worth mentioning, in the ISM manufacturing report from yesterday, they said that mentions of job firings outnumbered mentions of hirings by 3 to 1. So I think the market has a, what's the right word, ambivalent relationship with ADP, right, because it's just not on. But as for perhaps spotting a trend or underlining the concerned softness, I think it probably does a decent job of that. Over the course of a 12-month period, the two are off by about 200,000. So over time, they kind of come together. That's only 14,000 a month. As for the Fed, this will increase pressure on the Federal Reserve to cut rates, but it won't change anything about the concern they have over potential inflation. So it really just kind of deepens the stagflationary concern that we've heard from Fed officials.
Meantime, the one and only Rick Santelli joins us from the CME for his reaction to those numbers. Rick, you've been looking at them, listening to Mr. Leisman. What's on your mind?
Well, I mean, definitely it's the worst job creation from ADP since March of 23. That's a pretty good stretch of time. We all know that the labor market, at least purported by all the experts, economists, and Fed personnel, is just a kind of a ticking time bomb of slowness. It's going to definitely slow down. It's just a matter of when and what the rate of change is going to be. I don't know that I agree with that, but I do agree that the glide path is going to be headed down. But I think it's going to be a long glide path, and the relationship between ADP and the Labor Department's statistics that we'll be seeing tomorrow. As Steve adequately pointed out, there's a wide spread there. When I look at what happened with Jolts yesterday, when I consider most of the press and headlines over tariffs and the current administration's policies, it doesn't shock me that there may be more uses of the word firing than hiring. But maybe it's the contrarian end of this that we should pay more attention to. Maybe we should learn a lesson about what the equity markets did, about the kind of counter trend rally we had that briefly pushed yields down, although I think that much of that may be in the rear view mirror. Ultimately, I think it's easy. Yes, I think the best days of the labor market are behind us, but I do think that there could be a resurgence down the road for a variety of reasons after we hit maybe a small speed bump, and I think that's the real issue here. Are we going to get a genuine slowdown or a small hiccup? I'm in the latter camp.
Can we just go for one? Can I just ask one question? Yeah. What do you think this is a function of? Meaning why? We're talking about AI, we're talking about tariffs, so talking about what?
Eventually, standing in place creates a drain on the job. The reason is because people leave the job market if you don't hire more people. So what we've heard is not so, and what we've seen, by the way, in the data is not so much firing, it's a lack of hiring. Over time, that creates saps the strength of the labor market if you're not replacing those people who leave, so the total employment level would fall. I think the uncertainty may be a major role here. And I also think that we've heard a lot of stories about small businesses, the ones who are importing stuff, the ones who take the imported stuff and make other stuff out of it, small manufacturers, they have been potentially hurt by this. Before any of the potential positives that are hoped for by the administration, the bringing back or the reshoring, before that has any effect. I think the key here, again, is this stability, which would people say, okay, I know what the tariffs are going to be. I know what the taxing is going to be. That would say, okay, I get the situation. Now I can right size my job, my employment, which may be higher, maybe lower, maybe the same. I would just point out, though, that it was the weakness in the job market. People debate the 50 basis point cut before the election. It was the weakness in the job market that was cited repeatedly by the Fed as to why they cut 50. They did so in a very different inflation environment than the one we have right now. And there are the probabilities now. I guess they're a little bit higher for October, a little bit higher for December.
Why was it a really different inflation environment?
Because you had declining inflation back then.
Come on, you had stagnant inflation back then, exactly like we have now. The sticky last mile, really nothing has changed except for the way the Fed talks about it. It really hasn't changed much, Steve. If you look at the core numbers on PC, the core numbers on a lot of the data points, they're kind of stuck between 2.5% and 3.1%. Really nothing has changed on that front. There has been some uncertainty, but whether you look at things in the past like long-term capital, the credit crisis, uncertainty, exogenous issues always creep up, and the Fed seems to be able to determine policy before they happen. I'm not sure why tariffs are so damn different.
Rick, just real quick. You have across the board at least 10% increase in imports, right? And that will mathematically
10% what? Wait, I didn't pick that up. 10% what?
An at least across the board 10% tariff likely to be put on imports. So that's going to have some mathematical effect.
Right. And you're making that the center of your worry bead universe, although it's what? Imports 11% of the economy. Once again, I will stress, we are overplaying the uncertainty Trump tariff card. We are, and Trump's overplaying that he's not more hyperbole than fact on how rigid this is going to be.
What is it?
And both of these are going to meet.
Yeah, he's right.
What is what?
I've been saying this from
I think, we just
because
made
it's an
new all-time
anti-Trump
highs in
agenda.
stocks. I don't know. I think things are pretty darn good.
Well, in terms of the tariffs, I don't think it's really going to drive the numbers much. I think the Democrats and the anti-Trumpers
Let's talk markets now with Joe Amato, President and Chief Investment.
They're way overplaying it. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and help support the work that I do. See, I tell you how to play the market, all right? We're almost at 6,250, all right? The S&P 500 is at 6,214. 10 weeks ago or 11 weeks ago, whatever it was at 4,830. And I said, don't bet against the United States right now. We'll figure it away. We have our problems. We'll figure it out. But we may, go through bumpy roads like structural unemployment because of AI and creeping democratic socialism. And we might have a war over it. But eventually America will, be better off in the long run. We might have a civil war 2.0. But the market's going to go up, all right? So 6,215 right now. So 6,215. The VIX is at 1672. So these are very positive numbers. Now, what I don't like seeing is the rapid increase in the euro and the yen today. Dollar is weakening quite a bit today. I think a little faster than normal. Bitcoin is trading at about 109, almost 110. It's up about $4,205 per token. So BITO is trading at right now 21.08 with a resistance level at 21.48. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Gladiator Barley. Gladiator Barley is dual purpose. It'll help you to build muscle. You can stack it with Boomer Boost for synergistic benefits. But Gladiator Barley also will detoxify your body, bring down inflammation. By bringing down inflammation, you'll recover quicker during your workout. By bringing down inflammation, it's going to help with joints if you have osteoarthritis. By bringing down inflammation, it's going to help with your vascular system and reduce plaque formation. By bringing down inflammation, it's going to help with your immune system. And by soaking up free radicals with superoxide dismutase, you're slowing down the aging process while you're taking this. Now, you get a big scooper. It's a high-density protein. Again, if you do resistance training, you're going to gain muscle quicker. Take it every day. Mix it with soft foods, a smoothie, milk, or even filtered water. I put it in soft foods. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take the Gladiator Barley. Now, a great way to also build muscle, especially if you get to age 40 or older, you need to start taking Myotrol. Myotrol is a supplement that you take to help with the gene expression to build muscle. Now you can take it separately to help with the gene expression, but you can stack it with Gladiator Barley, and that will help you to build muscle quicker, all right, and maintain muscle. Now, Gladiator Barley is a high-density protein that will help you to actually have the nutrients to build the muscle, the building blocks to build the muscle when you do the resistance training. Myotrol will help with the gene expression to build the muscle. So taking them together is the best way to do it. But you can take them separately. It's up to you. But taking them together, you get the max benefit. Now, Myotrol has flavonoids, polyphenols, and lignans. It'll help with the health of the mitochondria, and again, help with the gene expression for building muscle. So please go to my store and get the Myotrol and stack it with the Gladiator Barley. That's a great way to increase your muscle and maintain muscle, because as you get older, it's going to be harder to gain muscle and you're going to atrophy, and you want to slow down that atrophying. So part of an anti-aging protocol is taking the proper supplementation, but also doing the resistance training to build the muscles that you need. So when you're in your geriatric years, you're much healthier. Detoxifying your body is really important. Now, Gladiator Barley helps to detoxify your body. That's one of the benefits. But you can also detoxify your body with zeolite. Zeolite will bind to heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals and allow you to urinate them out within 6 to 8 hours. Take 3 small drops underneath your tongue, drink filtered water, do that every day. If you want to do a more intense cleanse, take 5 small drops or 10 small drops underneath your tongue, drink the filtered water, and do that every day until the bottle is done, and then do that once or twice a year. It's up to you, but I prefer to do it daily. So please go to my store and get the zeolite. Very high quality. It's important to detoxify your body. And by detoxifying your body, you're helping your endocrine system, you're helping your immune system, you're helping your neurons. These are very important things. And lastly, take this stack to build bone density and to help with cardiovascular health. Now, D3 is a gene expression cofactor, so it's going to help with gene expression. It's going to help to get rid of cells that need to go into apoptosis. D3 helps to absorb calcium, especially if you take magnesium. So make sure you have magnesium in your diet, and you can get that through supplementation on my store. Now, D3, when you do resistance training, you're going to be able to deposit more bone matrix and you're going to get more bone density. But it works even better when you take it with K2, MK7 molecule. So taking calcium, I drink milk for my calcium intake, but you can take calcium supplement. Take the D3 and the K2 together to absorb that calcium. Do the resistance training to deposit the bone matrix that you need. And when you take the K2 and the D3 together, it also helps to reduce the amount of calcium depositing around plaque formation on your vascular system, and helps over time to pull some of that out. So it's part of a protocol to actually reduce blockage. Take a look at my cardiovascular box, and those are all the supplements that one would need to reduce plaque formation. But the point here is that D3, K2 together is dual purpose, helps with bone density and cardiovascular health. Now, to supercharge the cardiovascular health, take nattokinase. Nattokinase is fibrinolytic, so it's going to break up clots. But it also helps to control your lipid profile. And by bringing down LDL levels and increasing your HDL levels, you're reducing plaque formation because you're reducing oxidized LDL. So when you're taking D3 and K2 and the nattokinase, you're supercharging the stack to help with your cardiovascular health. And then you do some resistance training and some cardio and some stretching and some balancing exercises. Those are all beneficial for your overall health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. I sound like a broken record. Use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. If you spend $150 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last.
That we're going through here that may or may not lead us to a full smash vote on the big, beautiful bill. Thanks for being with us here on the Wednesday edition. Indeed, I'm Joe Matthew in Washington here on Bloomberg Radio, Satellite Radio Channel 121, Bloomberg Originals, and YouTube. Search Bloomberg Business News Live to see our video feed here. A UC storm, they're calling it, taking place on the floor of the House right now as members of the Congressional Black Caucus storm the rostrum with a series of unanimous consent requests, not to necessarily get anything done other than slow the process. Democrats, of course, have been locked out of this process. That is the way it works when you're dealing with reconciliation. It's a Republican family matter. Although Democrats are speaking about it, as we heard from Minority Leader in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, earlier. Listen.
Every single House Democrat will stand up for your health care. Stand up for your Medicaid. Stand up for your Medicare. Stand up for the Affordable Care Act. Stand up for nutritional assistance for our children, our seniors, and our veterans. So all we need are 4 Republicans to join us in support of their constituents, to have John McCain level courage and stand up in defense of the health care.
John McCain, let's talk about John McCain, all right? There wasn't a war that he didn't like, all right? He loved supporting war. Also, John McCain, when he got butthurt that he lost the primary against George Bush Jr., he was talking to the other side, the Democrats, and was thinking about switching parties. Does that sound like courage? Now, he didn't do it, but that's what was happening. He felt that the Republican Party should usher him in as the candidate for the president of the United States instead of George Bush Jr. Now, most people don't know that little fact, but he was literally lobbying the Democratic Party to be ushered in as a presidential candidate because he was butthurt. John McCain, courage. Yeah, right.
I think that the White House and the Republican majority have done an average job at best selling it to the American public. Obviously, they've been consumed with selling it to each other, and that takes up a lot of time. But they're really going to have a job to do. If this thing gets signed into law, they're going to have to hit the road and sell this hard. Otherwise, they're going to get the wrath of the American electorate come midterms. But look, I think that, the Congressman Murphy, he's looking at running for the Senate potentially. He made no bones about that in a conversation with you just now. That's a news item. The reality is anybody who's going to be on a ballot in 2026 is trying to figure out how do you go back and sell this to the constituents that put you into office. And I think a lot of these guys are starting to worry about that today.
Really interesting. Yeah, I have to admit, I was struck by Congressman Murphy's answers. It does sound like he's really considering a run for Senate. Jim Messina, I can't imagine what's going through your head right now. Democrats don't play a role in this, but they're going to have a lot to say on the midterm trail, as Rick just mentioned. Are you making commercials already?
Boy, they'd be pretty easy to make, Joe. I agree with Rick. I mean, this bill is about as popular as garbage. Like it is, when you look at the numbers, 78% of Americans want no cuts to Medicaid. This cuts Medicaid almost $1 trillion. And more importantly, for a bunch of people who are Bloomberg regular watchers, I don't think anyone on this line or watching thinks that adding another $4 trillion to the debt is a great idea. I think defending this next year in the ballot box is going to be a nightmare for Republicans. And, it's like Groundhog Day. We've been through this. In 2018, Donald Trump and the Republicans lost the House because the American public thought they were going after Obamacare and going after healthcare. So then fast forward, we're going to do the same thing again when they're making cuts to Obamacare, they're making cuts to Medicaid, they're making cuts to Medicare, and they think it'll be a different response. And I just think that it is very, very unclear that the American public is going to sit back and say, this is a great idea.
Well, while we're talking about the messaging component here, interesting poll, Rick, that came from Tony Fabrizio, Donald Trump, as they say, preferred pollster. He ran numbers in Georgia, Maine, Michigan, and the aforementioned North Carolina, and talked about this bill as rebranding it essentially as the Working Families Tax Cuts Bill. Poll found respondents came back 62% favorable, 12% unfavorable when it was given that title, that framing. And measures taken individually, like child tax credit, no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime, were overwhelmingly popular. Can Republicans thread the needle on this and talk about the individual components as opposed to, well, the big, beautiful bill? Or you've seen this movie before, and it's pretty difficult to delineate to the voter.
Yeah, look, I mean, the problem with doing this segmentation act, right? Taking little, pieces of the whole and saying, oh, look, you should be happy with this because it has this in it. I mean, this is a 1,000-page bill with, trillions of dollars at stake. And when you boil it down, if you're a family that has now become at risk with its Medicaid in those states. It doesn't matter what the politicians are telling you. If your Medicaid gets cut, if your local rural hospital shuts down, these are the things that matter to voters. Voters don't care about the rhetoric. They care about the impact on them. If they don't see a tangible plus in their pocketbooks between now and November of 26, they're going to vote their pocketbook. And it's an awful hard sell to try and tell people, don't believe what's happening in your kitchen table. Believe what we're telling you happened in Washington. I go with the kitchen table every time.
An even larger majority, really interesting here, Jim Messina, agree that able-bodied adults should have some sort of work requirements. When it comes to the Medicaid cuts, 2/3 of voters agree there is waste, fraud, and abuse. How do you message against that?
Well, you message again. Well, it's true, right? There is waste, fraud, and abuse, and getting rid of some of that, as Congressman Murphy talked about, the American public supportive. But they're not going to look at that. Voters are going to look exactly like Rick just said, and they're going to say, what does this do to me? Voters want to know what it does to me. And there's no question they're going to get less Medicaid next year. There's no question they're going to get less Medicare. And their Obamacare tax credits, which everyone files at the end of the year, are going to be substantially reduced. And that's what they're going to look at. They're just not, you can't say, look at this shiny penny over here and think voters are going to fall for it. They're going to look at what's in it for them. And what's in it for them is going to be a very difficult thing to defend. And I'm not being partisan about this. Rick's exactly right. I had to try to defend Obamacare in 2010 after we passed 1,000-page changes to the ACA, and it was impossible. It was so difficult, and we lost 70 seats in the House. And this is likely what the Republicans are going to have to try to do in the midterm elections, and I think it's a tall order.
Wow. Rick, Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall just caught up with Congressman Andy Harris, who chairs the House Freedom Caucus on Capitol Hill. We'll try to get this sound a little bit later in the broadcast. Asked if he's negotiating with the White House, knowing that there were members of the Freedom Caucus at the White House. I believe they're still there right now, talking to the president. Whether you're deal-making over potential EOs, commitments to legislation down the line, Andy Harris said on camera, Rick, I have not been talking to the White House about it. This is a decision to be made inside the House, and it will be handled inside the House today. What does that tell you about the state of affairs? Do we get a rule vote today, or is this thing going off the rails?
Well, he sounds a little spunky this morning. No telling what he had to leave at home to get to Washington and do this work. But look, I mean, anybody who's been betting against Speaker Johnson and Donald Trump, our Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, has been wrong 100% of the time this year, right? And there is a magic in the White House when you get these guys sitting in the Oval Office with the President of the United States. Regardless of who he is, you're going to get your way 90% of the time. My guess is he gets his way, and those guys who are there are going to sit down with Andy and say, oh my God, you are making our lives intolerable. Would you just not do any interviews between now and the rules votes, we've got today? Because look, I mean, it's every man for himself in the House always. But Johnson has been cagey about getting his caucus to vote the right way. And I have no doubt Donald Trump has got thumbscrews working overtime today in the Oval Office.
Yeah. Thumbscrews. Yeah, he's got no public events scheduled, and we haven't seen an update on the guidance, certainly as of yet. Fascinating reporting by NBC News, Jim Messina. You spent enough time in the Oval to know how things operate inside the West Wing. And Donald Trump has a very different brand. He calls the Oval Office, his nickname for the Oval Office, I'll have to find this. It's basically Grand Central. And off of Grand Central, where you have lots of people milling in and out, apparently, there's something he calls the Monica Lewinsky Room, the space near the Oval Office. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can Google it, where he keeps a beautifully organized gift shop of MAGA hats, T-shirts, and the rest. A Republican senator who was invited for a bill signing described this. J.D. Vance standing outside the Oval, drinking coffee, eating cookies. Does this sound like somebody who cares about the details of this bill or just wants it passed?
I think he just wants it passed, and that's not a criticism of him. Like, he views himself as a kind of orchestrator and a leader and someone who wants this thing done. And he's smart enough, to Rick's point, to say, look, the speaker knows how to give votes. The speaker hasn't failed. You know, the speaker will let me know who I need to put the thumb screws to, and we'll go get this done. And eventually what's going to happen here, I think this bill is going to pass this week, because they're going to have some version of Rick or I, the political hack, walk into the caucus and say, do you guys really want to go home and have the entire country lobbying you on this bill and start to figure out what's in this bill? Do you want to go home to your districts and have to defend some of the stuff in this? No, you do not. So let's pass this and go home and keep low and start to try to sell it. And I think that's probably what Donald Trump's version of this is. He's been calling members saying, I will primary you if you don't vote for this. And then Johnson's going to hand out every piece of candy he can to get people to vote for it. If you need a water project in your district, today's a pretty great time to ask, Joe.
Grand Central Terminal is how he described the Oval. Rick Davis, what do you think it's like in there right now?
Oh, I'm sure there's all kinds of interesting discussions going on. Jim Messina just mentioned the approach that hacks like us take. You know, it's a combination of cajoling and special offers. The really good cufflinks come out of the box today and get shuffled around. But at the other end of the equation, there are people out there showing polls right now that shows vulnerable incumbent House members who might get introduced to their MAGA primary opponent this afternoon. You know, it goes both ways. Just depends upon what they think is going to need to get a vote. And I agree. I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen, you know, either on or before 4th of July. The president's going to get his way. I would not vote. I would not bank against him, you know, with this caucus.
All right. I just needed to hear Rick Davis say it. Absolutely great. As Ryan notes, what a line here. You want to go home and find out what's in the bill and have to defend it? This is the world we're in right now with Jim Messina and Rick Davis. Many thanks to you both. They'll be back in our second.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the heirloom barley. Heirloom barley is going to detoxify your body, bring down inflammation, and help to soak up free radicals with superoxide dismutase. It's very similar to Gladiator barley. It's a powder. It's a high-density protein. You take it every day. Very important. Detoxify that body, bring down that inflammation, soak up those free radicals, and it also helps to control your A1C levels, especially if you take it with the Boomer Boost and you do resistance training. Now, ubiquinol is the most bioavailable form of CoQ10 that you can get. Ubiquinol will soak up free radicals, and that's going to help the health of the mitochondria. That's going to bring up your ATP levels. You're going to have more energy, and ubiquinol helps to protect neurons. Super important if you're 40 years of age or older. Resveratrol helps with youthful gene expression, gets rid of senescent cells, helps to soak up free radicals, and helps to boost up those energy levels and improve the health of the mitochondria. I've been taking resveratrol for decades. It stacks very well with ubiquinol, NAD+, C60, clarity factor. So please go to my store and make sure you take resveratrol. And a great stack is the ubiquinol with the resveratrol. And at age 40 or older, your pancreas doesn't work as well, no matter how fit you are. So taking digestive enzyme complex is going to help to break up those proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids so you can absorb your food better, reduce the stress on your digestive tract to be able to absorb that food. And this also helps to break up clots because it has bromelain in it. Bromelain is an enzyme that will help to break up clots. In addition, the proteolytic enzymes that are in here breaks up glycoproteins. And that is why I told you to take digestive enzyme complex back in 2020. But not just that, it helps the health of your mitochondria because it's doing the work for you. All right. As we get older, we have to give our pancreas a little bit of extra help. And by allowing digestive enzyme complex to break up your proteins, your carbohydrates, and your lipids, you're reducing the stress on your pancreas. Now, if you are an athlete, younger or older, You can benefit by taking digestive enzyme complex because it's going to help to break up the food, your pre-fueling or your post-fueling fuel source. And that way you're reducing the load on your pancreas. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the digestive enzyme complex. Very important for you. Pancreatic health is super important.
Live from Washington, D.C., this is Balance of Power with Joe Matthew and Kaylee Lines.
Republicans still do not have the votes to pass the president's big, beautiful bill once and for all. Welcome to the Wednesday edition as the House grinds through a series of procedural votes that should set up a final decision at some point. We just don't know when. I'm Joe Matthew alongside Kaylee Lines in Washington. We thank you for joining us here. A number of issues, Kaylee, could potentially slow this process, not the least of which is the weather. A lot of lawmakers having trouble getting back into town.
Yeah, the thunderstorms and flight cancellations, meaning that a lot of lawmakers have embarked on incredibly long car trips to try to get here to make the vote, knowing that ultimately the numbers of people who are actually there to cast a vote, either for yay or for nay, could dictate whether or not this thing goes down.
For sure.
Or not, knowing that the Speaker of the House is working with a very tight margin. And right now, at least when you consider the members of the Republican conference making noise like they might not support the rule that would pave the way toward final passage of this bill, it looks like there's currently more no's than he can actually afford.
Yeah, still at this hour, pretty remarkable knowing they're working towards a self-imposed July 4 deadline that would require a vote tonight or tomorrow. I guess at some point on Friday, but that's not too likely, I would think, on Independence Day. But anything is possible here. Leadership says lawmakers will stay in town until it's done.
Yeah, and of course, President Trump is also involved in this. He was meeting at the White House with members of the House Freedom Caucus trying to push for this piece of legislation that is supposed to be really the landmark legislative accomplishment of this second term. Will his arm twisting, though, be enough? We're all going to have to wait to find out.
Yeah, we're going to talk to a Democrat and Republican over the course of this hour. They'll have to be extracted from the floor to get to our conversation here on Balance of Power. Republican Jim Jordan, who's going to have a lot to say about this. Democrat Susan DelBene, who's charged with getting Democrats elected in the midterms, and could talk about some of the messaging that's coming out of this bill on both sides of the aisle today.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to those conversations live from Capitol Hill ahead. But first, as always, we have to check on financial markets. And for that, we look live to New York, where we find Charlie Pelley.
Thank you very much. Lots going on this Wednesday. We've got the Dow lower, the S&P, NASDAQ, all advancing. S&P right now, best level of the day, potentially on track for yet another record. S&P bouncing on a U.S.-Vietnam deal. Tech shares are rallying. NASDAQ up by 0.8%. The Bloomberg Mag 7 index surging 1.3%, keeping it all in context. That's what we do here at Bloomberg. We've got the S&P up 0.3%. The Dow again lower by 0.1%. 10-year 4.30%, with the 2-year 3.78%. Gold up $10 the ounce right now. Spot gold up 0.3%. West Texas Intermediate crude rallying 2.1%. WTI 66.87 a barrel. Tesla's global sales tumbled for the second quarter in a row, leaving the car maker in a deep hole to dig out from to avoid consecutive annual declines. Tesla shares, though, they're advancing 4.4%. Health insurer Centene plummeting the most on record after shocking investors last night when it withdrew its profit outlook on precipitously rising risks from Affordable Care Act plans. Right now, we've got Centene plunging 39%. And UK markets fell, the pound shedding more than 1% as investors grew increasingly nervous about the state of Britain's finances. Sean Diddy Combs acquitted today on the top charges of racketeering, and sex trafficking, but convicted of lesser charges. Recapping, S&P up 21, up 0.3%. Balance of power continues right now. Back we go to Washington. Once again, your hosts, Joe Matthew and Kaylee Lyons.
All right, Charlie Pellet in New York, thank you so much. Watching the markets for us. Meantime, we're watching Capitol Hill, where in the House of Representatives, voting is starting. Not yet voting on the rule that, of course, is the key procedural hurdle that needs to be conquered in order for the House to get to a vote on final passage of the bill, the reconciliation bill that the Senate passed yesterday. We have a multi-vote series about to go down. Joe, the third vote will be on this rule, and there is no guarantee that the rule itself can pass, as House Freedom Caucus members are suggesting they will not support it. And of course, you just spoke in the last hour with Congressman Greg Murphy, who suggested that this thing very well could go down.
Yeah, he thought the rule may well fail, and this whole process could move into next week. The only serving physician in the House of Representatives, Greg Murphy, was very concerned about the changes being made to Medicaid. He was asking to slow the process down and, in fact, make changes to this bill specifically to Medicaid, which would require it going back to the Senate, Kaylee, and I'm not sure anyone has the wherewithal for that.
Well, it certainly would make that July 4th deadline the president wants to meet very difficult to meet if you have to take this to conference. But even some senators were calling for that yesterday, like Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, who ultimately voted to pass it in the Senate, says she hoped the House would change it and send it back to her chamber.
We've heard that from a couple of folks here on the Senate side. It's unclear exactly how this is going to play out today, but as Kaylee mentioned, we are anticipating at least a rules vote. And so let's bring you to the House right now. Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall has been up there all morning and has the latest for us. Tyler, what are you hearing?
Yeah, hey, Joe. So we are still waiting for this vote to happen. Of course, it's a procedural vote, this vote on the rule, but it is important to ultimately paving the way for final passage because they can't vote on the final contents of the bill until this rule is passed. And it's going to give us an indication here in the following moments how difficult House Speaker Mike Johnson's job is about to get, because if the rule fails, that could have a whole bunch of different implications for how they need to negotiate this package to get it over the finish line. Now, we've broadly been talking about how there's pretty broad agreement about the core pillars of this package when it comes to the tax cut side of things, but it is those spending cuts and how this bill will add to our national debt that is really starting to spur some of the most vocal critics of the bill here on Capitol Hill. That includes those members of the House Freedom Caucus, such as Congressman Chip Roy, a Republican from Texas. I actually had the chance to catch up with him earlier today. He predicted that this first vote on the rule will fail and suggested that the Senate might need to come back into town so they can talk about this legislation.
We sent them a product. We liked it in some respects. Could be better in others. The Senate has now made some changes. Some are good, some are bad. Now we got to look at the total product and decide what is bad. It's not take it or leave it. I don't do take it or leave it legislating. How about we send it back to them and we say take it or leave it, right? So the Senate doesn't get to be the final say on everything. Got to work this out.
So Joe and Kaylee, we're going to have to see how this ultimately develops, whether or not there actually is an appetite for the Senate to retake this up, considering when we think about how these fiscal hawks counterparts in the Senate, like Ron Johnson and Rick Scott, ultimately ended voting in favor of this bill. Now, I also caught up with the House Freedom Caucus chair, Andy Harris. He told me that he's actually not talking to the White House about this when I asked if there's any sort of negotiations going on for some sort of other deals, such as promises for legislation down the line or executive orders, say, to boost revenue raisers or curb spending that they could maybe get on board with. And he said that they're not discussing it. Instead, they are focused on changing the priorities in this package. Two main ones I'll leave you with. One is snapping back the phase out of the clean energy tax credits to how the House originally had them. That would be 2027. The House has a more lenient timeline. But second, something that struck me as really interesting, he wants to see some of the business tax credits made temporary again. The Senate had made most of them permanent. So we're going to have to see if potentially there could be any sort of wiggle room there, because as you both well know, this bill is not designed to ping pong between the chambers.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. Tyler, when we consider this vote on the rule, yes, it going down would certainly complicate measures and kill the floor effort for now. But we have seen with votes in the past when the speaker has struggled to get his whip count essentially where it needs to be, he just has left the vote open and allowed President Trump himself time to make phone calls to the holdouts. Is it possible that we could see that this afternoon?
Potentially, we'll have to see. We won't get too wonky into the procedure here, but Republicans are going to need to do a little bit of shifting in how the bill was actually written, because it does appear that they actually left out a procedural move that would have opened up that possibility to keep the debate open, give House Speaker Mike Johnson essentially an exit plan if everything goes to turmoil once it does get to the floor. We are expecting that to be, though, an option on the table for him moving forward here. We know that President Trump is already calling up these members, inviting them to the White House. It was interesting to hear. It's our understanding that some of those more fiscal conservatives were over at the White House, but also Congressman Mike Lawler, Republican from New York, somebody who helped negotiate that SALT deal that we thought was happy and on board with it, which does bring us to another group to keep our eye on, not necessarily the SALT Republicans, but also those moderate Republicans in those critical battleground districts who have raised concerns about changes to Medicaid, not necessarily tightening the work requirements, Joe and Kayla, but how the Senate plan lowers that Medicaid provider tax for states that expanded coverage under the Affordable Care Act. That could also prove problematic when it comes to dissent going forward, since we know 16 Republicans had vowed that they wouldn't vote for this if the bill did lower that provider tax.
All right, Tyler Kendall reporting live from Capitol Hill for us on Bloomberg TV and radio. Thank you so much. And we want to stay live on Capitol Hill as we turn now to Democratic Congresswoman Susan DelBene of Washington, who of course chairs the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. She is charged with making sure Democrats get elected to the House of Representatives. Congresswoman, welcome back to Balance of Power. It's always great to have you. When we consider that there are some of your Republican colleagues who are holding out on this legislation for now, they'd like to see it changed in ways that could mean more rollbacks of, or quicker rollbacks of Inflation Reduction Act subsidies, perhaps deeper spending cuts elsewhere. At this point, is it actually the best case scenario for Democrats and the American public if this bill passes as is, because it could only get worse from your perspective if it's further changed?
Well, let's be clear. This is a terrible bill. It raises costs for American families. It guts healthcare. 17 million people across the country losing their healthcare coverage. Prices going up for everyone else. This is a terrible bill, and we are united in being against this bill. And frankly, more Republicans should be against this bill because the American people are against this bill. Poll after poll, the more people learn about this bill, the more they dislike it, and it is fiscally irresponsible. Republicans who want to make it worse, they've all voted for this once in the House. They have the chance to decide what they're going to do going forward. This is a terrible bill, and it's going to hurt all of their districts and their communities. So hopefully there will be some Republicans who are willing to actually stand up for the American people and vote against this bill. But we know they all cave whenever it comes down to it and follow along with Donald Trump.
So you're not expecting these no's to stay no's, apparently, Congresswoman. I'm just wondering, and I know there's not a lot of conversation across the aisle, if any, right now, but are you reaching out to Republicans who are on the fence or prepared to vote no to join your coalition against this legislation?
We welcome any Republicans who are going to vote no. They should be voting no because the impacts of this are devastating, long-term impacts to our communities. And in Republican districts, to thousands and thousands of people losing access to health care, losing access to basic nutrition support, making sure that we have healthy foods for our kids, energy costs going up, the list goes on, and just $4 trillion increase to the debt, that impacts our kids too. So Republicans say they're fiscally responsible. Absolutely not. In this case, if they want to do something different, they should stand up, vote no, and come to the table and actually work on a policy that will help move our country forward, invest in our future, invest in working families.
Well, Congresswoman, obviously it is your charge at the DCCC to be looking at the map. And if you look at it district by district and how the impact of this legislation may ultimately be felt in districts with seats currently held by Republicans, how many potential pickup opportunities do you see as a result?
Well, I think this bill, it really defines where Republicans are, and this bill and their vote on this bill is going to be a huge reason we take back the majority in the House of Representatives. The American people reject the bill, but in district after district, we have 35 districts where we're on offense across the country. In those 35 districts, people in these communities will lose health care, see health care costs go up, see energy costs go up, see food prices go up. Republicans promised they were going to lower costs on day one. It's the #1 issue for families across the country. They promised they were going to lower costs. That's a broken promise. This big, ugly bill is also a big, broken promise. So we're gonna hold them accountable for that across the country.
Is that potentially 35 seats then, Congresswoman? Do you think it could be that many?
We have 35 seats. We're in play across the country. We're recruiting great candidates. Folks are going to actually stand up for their communities, who are going to really be voices for their communities, talk about the issues that matter, and who actually want to come to Washington, D.C. to govern for communities, not be a blindly loyal vote for Donald Trump.
You've mentioned the number of people who could potentially lose health coverage, and I think 17 million is the number that we've been hearing, Congresswoman, that you mentioned as well. There's a new survey from Tony Fabrizio's group, commissioned by One Nation, that found 2/3 of voters agree there is waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid. How do you message to them?
We know that families across the country depend on Medicaid. Our rural hospitals depend on Medicaid. Look across the board. This has nothing to do with strengthening Medicaid. What Republicans are trying to do is rip it apart. $1 trillion, rip it apart, rip apart the Affordable Care Act subsidies that are out there. 17 million people losing health care, but also rural hospitals closing across the country, nursing homes. All of these are things that are supported through Medicaid that are critically important to all of our communities. So, and healthcare costs will go up for everyone in the country, because even if you have coverage, premiums are going to go up when more and more people are using the emergency room as their primary care. We know, we've seen before how damaging that is. They're walking us down that path again now, and the American people know that.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the lozenges and the drops. You use them no matter what season that's causing that irritation in your throat. It's very important to mitigate that irritation right away. So the drops, you get 100 drops in each bag, very high quality. Take them right away to mitigate that irritation. It will create the secretions and help to maintain that barrier in your oral cavity and your oral pharynx. Now, you can get it in honey and lemon, cherry flavor, and in blueberry. Get a few bags for your household, for work. You never know when you need it. Take them when you have that irritation. I also have lozenges, which are larger. You get 21 in each bag. And what I have in stock are the elderberry zinc lozenges. Get a few bags for your household. Help support the work that I do. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. I also have C60. C60 is a very potent antioxidant. I take this every day. I've been taking it since 2016. Take a teaspoon a day on an empty stomach for best absorption. If you work out, take it before your workout, and it'll soak up the free radicals that you're generating during your workout, and you'll recover quicker. Now, what C60 does is it absorbs those free radicals, helps to boost the mitochondria. Your energy levels will go up in the cell and in your tissues. Your endocrine system will get better. Your immune system will improve. It'll also help with your vascular system by soaking up the free radicals in your bloodstream, and soaking up free radicals in your neurons will help to improve the health of your neuron. You can get it in MCT coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, or avocado oil. Now, again, take a teaspoon a day every day to soak up those free radicals. It's about 1,000 times more potent than vitamin C. And what it's going to do is it's going to soak up those free radicals, all right? Reduce the stress in the cell, and you're going to have more energy. And your cell is going to perform better. And over time, you're going to notice visibly that you're slowing down your aging process, and that your body is improving because your immune system is improving, your tissues are improving, your neurons are improving, your endocrine system is improving. Super important. So please go to my store, get the C60. You can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. Take it every day. Super important. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. It's the second pillar of my core protocol. Now, the foundation of the protocol is making sure that you take a multivitamin, make sure you take a probiotic. That's the foundation. And then the core of it is cleanse, or max 35 or max 14 is the first pillar of the core. That will boost up your immune system. The second pillar is the C60 to soak up the free radicals. The third pillar has the turmeric, the ashwagandha, the lignans to boost up your immune system and help with your vascular system, your cardiovascular system. And Boomer Boost helps to rev up your metabolism and increase your energy levels. So if you notice in the core, what are we targeting? We're targeting free radicals. So you want to bring down that stress from the free radicals. We're boosting up our immune system. We're helping our cardiovascular health, and we're boosting up our energy levels and revving up the metabolism. These are targeting aspects of aging. And then when you have more vitality, you're going to be doing other very important things like working out and moving around and being more active. And then you're going to learn new things, and that's going to help with your neuroplasticity. So it's a holistic approach. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplements that I offer to help to support the work that I do and to help to support your health and wellness. Thank you for listening. That's the end of the transmission. We've been going on for about 3 hours and 45 minutes today. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.